Chapter 32. The race had started. The sports festival was just that, a sports festival where students could show off their quirks and the young heroes to really show what they were made of. So the race course was going to have a few good tricks to it that most courses wouldn't ever dream of having. It was a course worthy of getting Japan pumped up to see it, and this year, they had gone all out on the first event and made the very first part of the race interesting for all involved. Of course, there were clear leaders in the race. With Midnight. Yes, he's doing great. I didn't realize he was so athletic before. Do me proud, do me good and proud. Midnight whispered as she watched the giant television screen. She saw Naruto using his strong legs to jump over the starting crowd and take first place. He kept hopping as a couple of students ran behind him and kept a firm distance between them that didn't shrink much. In first place so far is our own Midnight's very own son, Uzumaki Naruto. Let's see what the adult-only hero was able to teach her child, and if he can keep his lead with Endeavor's son hot on his cold tracks. Hell yeah, he can do it. Midnight, realizing the secret was out, openly cheered for Naruto now as she raised her whip up. Wait, that's unfair. Midnight realized that somebody was using their quirk to create a massively unfair advantage. Todoroki had frozen the ground and a lot of students weren't able to continue running, but it was allowed by the rules to interfere with other students. With Naruto, this is a bit easy. I guess I don't have to worry so much about challenging myself. After over a year of running from heroes all the time, I've gotten faster. Naruto thought as he barely had to push himself to stay ahead of the pack. He was only using 60% of his full speed, a great chunk of speed, but by all means he wasn't pushing himself to really try. While heroes like Mirko were still faster than he was, it was his skill with the speed he did have that always allowed him to escape them. Well, after over 12 months of constantly running and getting good training against heroes, this wasn't hard for him. A robot army. The first challenge for students were to face off and run past a large-scale robot army, with some massive, building-sized, robots standing and moving towards them. Naruto's eyes widened for a moment. He grinned. He didn't hesitate. Away from UA. Well damn, this is pretty fun to watch, and damn does this kid have some serious talent. Mirko stated as she watched a TV, stopping by a store that had a TV playing in the window on the channel with UA's sports festival. Other heroes had stopped nearby as well, and many civilians were watching as the camera stuck on the first-place person. Well, it was Midnight's son. Wow, usually it's a brat from the hero course who sticks in first place. It's never ever been a kid from the general course though. His moves? I feel like I've seen them before. Mirko said to herself as she rubbed her head in self-anger at not being able to recognize where she knew those moves from. She saw Naruto flip over a robot, doing a flip, while grabbing the robot's head and pulling it off. When a robot tried to attack him, he moved like a fluid fighter and evaded anything that got too close to him. When a robot fired a claw at him from behind, Naruto seemed to notice the attack coming at him from behind his very head. Oh, the kid is. He dodged that? The heroes were impressed when Naruto's feet touched a robot for a brief second, before he did a backflip while still going forward. He dodged the claw as it traveled underneath his flipping body, a grin firmly rooted to his face as he grabbed the moving claw and let it carry him at a greater speed for several meters. Well, that kid has fine reflexes, even most pro heroes can't dodge attacks like that with no warning. It was like he sensed the attack was coming before it touched him. Just like Kurama. Mirko realized where she had seen similar moves to this. Like Kurama, this kid was moving without needing to see the attacks. He dodged them by experience and with the ease of a pro hero, he dodged them in a similar way to how Kurama dodged her when she attacked him from his blind spots. Like Kurama, this Naruto kid seemed to have no blind spots in his defense as he dodged every single robot. The students who didn't stop running got through the small robots, and were face to face with the giant robots. Endeavor's son froze a Gant robot without an issue. Robots like that weren't a challenge for most pro heroes to take care of since gigantification-type quirks were so common these days. It was par for the course, but she was surprised when the general studies student did something different. With Midnight. Whoa, I didn't know he could do that. Midnight whispered when she saw Naruto, on the screen land a jump on top of the large robot's head as another one made to attack him. Naruto jumped off of it just in time as the robot's head was punched, and it went flying while Naruto puffed himself up and slowed his descent to the ground. She hadn't expected him to actually defeat one of the giant robots. She figured the small ones, yeah, but not one of the big ones. Go in Ai-chan. Now, Naruto and Shoto are the only contestants, and Momo creates a cannon to shoot down the last giant robot, and create a pathway for the other students to run. It seems these three students stand out far above the rest so far. With Momo. Naruto, I'll defeat you. The world might not know who you are, but beating you here will prove to myself that I have the potential to be better than the #1 villain. Momo thought as she smiled at the remains of the giant robot that had taken a cannon blast to the head and fallen on top of all of the other robots underneath it. She stood among the only 3 students in the race to take down one of the giant robots with ease, Todoroki freezing one, Naruto manipulating one robot to defeat another, and she herself shot one to pieces. That put her on par with Naruto and Todoroki when it came to at least this feat of skill and strength. Rah! She was instantly surpassed as Bakugo fired off explosions from his hands and shot forward like a bullet, sick and tired of not being in first place that his anger exploded. She frowned deeply when she realized that the gap between her and her fellow students was still just as wide as it had been before. You think some general studies nobody is going to get first place, like hell. Die Bastard. DD. Was the common thought among everyone when Bakugo screamed as he moved forward like a jet. Of course, Bakugo didn't seem to plan on directly attacking Naruto or Todoroki, but he shot towards them as they got to the second part of the racing course. Powered by explosions, he was able to catch up to Naruto just as they reached a massive crater in the ground that had pillars of earth sticking up. The second part of the race, cross the crater by going from pillar to pillar, but either using your quirk or using the ropes attached to the pillars. Naruto jumped into the crater and grabbed a rope as Bakugo started to fly himself over the pillars. Since now Bakugo was his biggest competitor for the race, Naruto just grinned as he kicked the ground and shattered it enough to release the rope that was stuck in it. He kicked a second time and shot himself down into the crater. With the audience. Nii-chan. The orphanage children who had gotten tickets from midnight were all screaming support towards Naruto, though he couldn't hear them. On the large TV screen, Naruto vanished as he disappeared in the darkness of the crater. Naruto. Midnight didn't know what to make of the move. It seems the previous first place Naruto has jumped down into the, and what an amazing move. On the TV screen, Naruto was shot out of the darkness like a cannon as he used the rope as a giant swing. He went flying through the air faster than Bakugo could keep up, crossing the entire crater in mere moments as he did flips and tricks for the cameras watching him. Other students were only starting to get to the crater, while Naruto, Bakugo, and Todoroki had all finished crossing it and were already running towards the next event. Damn, now that kid is good. How isn't he in the hero course? I know, he's got a real flair for being on camera. He's playing it up naturally, showing off his quirk, and even putting the students who trained for this to shame. Midnight could hear the heroes in the crowd talking to each other as her son gained the attention of everyone watching. Nobody was ever expecting a general studies student to put hero students to shame, even she didn't expect Naruto take the lead like this. It was really amazing, and made her really appreciate the training they did together. Naruto was putting what she taught him to use, and she loved to see him succeed. You go to the very top. Midnight thought proudly. Heroes watching on patrol. Which hero student is that? That's Midnight's boy, Naruto, he's in the general studies. I'm really interested in this, looks like the kid had some serious potential. He moves just like Kurama does. Mirko explained to her fellow hero as she watched the TV with more interest than before. She should know what Kurama moved like, she fought him more than any other hero alive. His movements were something that she understood with her body and eyes, and these movements were so fluid that they just screamed a similarity to Kurama. This just shows that more people have the same skill level as that guy. That's pretty scary to think so many little bastards like that exist, huh? Mirko gave an excited grin at the very thought of it. So many people with that level of skill and potential were constantly being groomed, and as quirks evolved and got stronger, villains and heroes of each generation would get stronger and stronger. Older heroes were always being left in the dust by newer generations of heroes, and the same could be said for villains. Really, I don't see it, this student seems really serious, but Kurama is just some prankster. They don't have the same aura to me. Blonde hair, and blue eyes, those are similar traits to Kurama, that he had under his hood. I have blurry memories of those. Mirko narrowed her eyes when she watched the TV screen. With Naruto. Donji. Naruto flipped through the air as he came across a sign that warned for a minefield. Naruto looked at the ground carefully, before he decided that he wouldn't be able to tell where the mines were so easily. They were non-lethal mines, but all the same they were meant to slow down the person who was in first place. Naruto closed his eyes and ran blindly. He heard an explosion behind him as Todoroki blew up one of the mines by running too close to him, and Naruto jumped to his left and landed on his hands. Hopping forward he flipped, and the second he landed he continued his momentum and flipped again forward even faster. He heard more explosions behind him, but he trusted his sense to tell him where he needed to go. He allowed his sixth sense to be his guide as he did nothing but hops and flips across the race grounds. The damn gap is getting even. Bakugo didn't even get to finish his thought before he stepped on a landmine and blew it up, stopping him in his tracks for a moment. He glared as the distance between himself and first place only got wider. Boom! Midoriya too? Todoroki questioned when Deku went flying off of a shield that had been strapped with landmines, getting ahead of him and Bakugo. He glanced behind himself as he ran, and saw many other students starting to catch up. The siren went off. Naruto Uzumaki has taken first place, and second by 6 seconds is Izuku Midoriya. After them, we have Shoto Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo. Damn it all, fourth place, behind a general studies nobody and Deku. Bakugo was already screaming death as he punched the ground. He didn't care if it was in front of the cameras, but after he talked a big game about coming in first, coming in fourth was the absolute worst for him. That wasn't even a silver or a bronze medal, he was in a loser spot now. Naruto was basking in the crowd's attention as they cheered for the first place winner for the race. Wow Naruto, that was amazing, I didn't realize the Toad quirk could get this great. You've really improved since you fought Ashido. Izuku walked towards Naruto with a wide smile on his face. Just happy to say hi to Naruto, though he was annoyed he himself didn't get first place. He extended a hand towards Naruto. Naruto didn't see a reason not to shake it. Well, I couldn't let Mina beat me again. Naruto still felt annoyed that for his cover, that he needed to be knocked out by Mina. That stain on his pride still stood pretty strong, and he hoped he could get a chance to get a little bit of revenge against the girl. You did pretty good, you came in second out of nowhere. Naruto complimented the surprise second place the teenager had gotten. He had expected Todoroki or Bakugo, who had stayed behind him for most of the race, and stayed pretty close behind him comparison to how most pro heroes chased him. Both Bakugo and Todoroki were on par with quite a few pro heroes at even this moment in time, but sadly, he was in a league above the average pro hero. Naruto glanced at Midnight, and she sent him a thumbs up. He nodded back to her. He got first place in the first event. Chapter 33. 44 students. 44 students made it to the second event of the sports festival, and enough students had showed off a good deal of their quirks. Apparently, originally the school was going to do a cavalry battle to show off a student's teamwork. That was originally though, but because the school believed that Kurama was going to get involved in the second or third event to make a big show out of it all, both of those events had changed from what they originally were. Naruto was wearing a red headband. Todoroki was wearing a blue headband. Bakugo was wearing a green headband. Midoriya was wearing a purple headband. They were separated into 4 different parts of the arena, with the crowd surrounding them from all sides so they could all view what was about to happen down in the arena below. The walls were strong enough that students could still go pretty hard with their quirks with only minimal restrictions, like in the cases of Todoroki, Midoriya, and Bakugo, who had very wide-scale destruction abilities to their quirks. Those who placed in the top 4 of the first event were separated from the rest of the students and given headbands. Now, the 4 students who take those headbands and have them by the end of the 30 minutes will make it to the next round. This event will be a free-for-all battle. The 4 best of the last race will fight 10 students to defend their headband. Present Mike shouted from the observer box as he announced the rules for what would be happening. Once somebody takes the headband, they have to defend it until the time runs out, by the way. It's a true free-for-all. Present Mike called out even louder. Yeewa. He then proceeded to scream yeah into the crowd. This is going to be hard, I can't use my poison the way I usually do, and I'm only used to fighting the way I battle as Kurama. I can't act like a perverted villain. Naruto thought to himself as he frowned at his restrictions. While the other headband defenders had restrictions on the scale of their quirks, one could argue his restriction was completely different. He didn't know how to fight anyway other than how he fought as Kurama. They could still use their fighting styles, just size down the scale, but he couldn't even fight the way he knew how to fight. He was going to have to use parts of his quirk he never used to make up for his lack of experience fighting in different ways. I'm taking that headband from you, Naruto. Momo stated as she lowered her stance, ready for a fight with Naruto. She gave a smirk as she looked him dead in the eyes, because she was like him in what he had realized. She knew his restrictions. Tisk. Naruto clicked his teeth in annoyance, since the most troublesome opponent was the one who knew his restrictions. Momo had a personal vendetta against him as well, considering how often he would tease her and perv on her as his Kurama persona. Her mission was to be better than him in any way that she could, and she would take a victory wherever she could get it. Setsuna just smiled at Naruto. Yeah, Naruto, just because our past doesn't mean I'll hold back against you when that timer reaches 0. Setsuna stated as she sent Naruto a cocky thumbs up. Naruto sent her a raised eyebrow. He was pretty sure he didn't have a past with her. He's just a general studies student, his quirk is really good and all that, but I'm pretty sure that his race win was just his quirk having an advantage. Denki stated as he waved off his opponent with an even cockier grin. Setsuna glared at Denki. Hey, Naruto's toad poison has always been really, really potent. When people figured out his toad quirk was more powerful than his father's, he was put through really intense quirk counseling to control it. Setsuna lectured Denki, since having more teammates that weren't going to underestimate the wall in front of them was for the best. Isn't that right, Nachan? Setsuna sent a hint to Naruto. She wanted him to realize who she was, and hopefully this was her chance. Naruto blinked in surprise. Setsuna Tokage, quirk, lizard tail splitter. Momo yaoyorozu, quirk, creation. Tetsu 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 tetsu, quirk, steel. Achiko Uraraka, quirk, gravity. Denki Kaminari, quirk, electrification. Toru Hagakure, quirk, invisible. Jiroda Shishida, quirk, beast. Yui Kodai, quirk, size. Mina Ashido, quirk, acid. Tsuyu Azui, quirk, frog. Setsuna apparently has knowledge on my quirk, and so does Muffin Top, not to mention Tsuyu has a similar quirk to mine. She knows her own abilities very well, so she has knowledge on my basic abilities. Still, yeah, and it looks like the others are going against students who had advantages against their quirks too. Naruto thought as he looked at Bakugo, Todoroki, and Midori as opponents. All of their opponents had some way, shape, or form to counter some aspect of their quirk. That or they had methods to work together to take the headband, quirks that worked together well in some way or form. The students with headbands were purposely placed into groups that could take advantage of the weaknesses of their quirk. My toad quirk doesn't have any real weaknesses to take advantage of, other than me being weaker to cold. My quirk is good for most situations, so they put me up against quirks that had a wider range of ability. Naruto thought as he looked at all of the students he was going to fight again. He grinned after a moment. Oh, he sucks at hand-to-hand, so we'll be just fine. Mina shouted loudly with a laugh. I remember knocking him out, one good Mina punch to the jaw and he was out like a light. Mina continued to brag, underestimating Naruto and not seeing his jaw tense up. Naruto forced himself to grin harder as he stared her down. Naruto blinked, before he realized something. A devious smile came over his face. Oh crap, that's not a good face. Momo whispered when she saw the evil look over Naruto's face. Stay hard. Naruto jumped into the air just as he was faced with the first attack, and while he was in the air he took the headband off his forehead and tossed it into the middle of the people he was fighting. Naruto landed on the ground without the headband, shocking all of the students who he was facing when they saw him just toss the headband away like it was nothing. Have fun. Naruto told them as he put his hands in his pockets and walked towards the wall that separated him from the audience. What? Huh? It wasn't just the students, but portions of the audience shouted as well when Naruto gave up his own ticket to the next round of the sports festival. In the audience. How the hell could that student just do that, and after he came in first in the race? What the hell, kid, get the headband back on and fight. That's pretty genius, that boy is one hell of a mastermind. No, wait, that's not quite the right word. Nana Shimura stated, in civilian clothes, as she watched the fight. After having been released from the hospital, and having her hero license revoked due to her years of inactivity and her lack of knowledge on new laws, she didn't have much left to do but to watch this kind of event. Like watching Kurama, Naruto as he was called apparently, manipulate people even without using his Kurama persona. No, that's absolutely stupid. A hero tried to argue with her. Sorry for the wait, I'm back with snacks. Toshinori said as he joined her, sitting next to her as he gave her a bowl of popcorn. Sorry Toshi, but I don't really have any money anymore, I don't mean to impose on you this much. Nana apologized with a sorry grin, but Toshinori waved off her concerns. It's no trouble, and I agree with you, this Uzumaki boy certainly is either a genius, or he understands human emotions and how to manipulate people far better than any student should be able to. Toshinori stated, agreeing with her as he caught on to what Naruto was doing instantly as well. While the vast majority of people had no clue what Naruto was doing, a true pro hero like him understood after having seen similar tactics used by villains, though when villains used it, it was done for more maliciously. Naruto was manipulating the students, and he was doing so with very little effort. With Naruto. Go on you guys, headband is right there. Naruto stated as he gestured towards the headband on the ground. I won't be making it to the next round, so a hero student might as well be the one to make it. Naruto added fuel onto the fire. He grinned. This event was perfect for heroes on multiple levels. This event could show off a hero's ability to work in groups, it could show off a hero's ability to fight multiple opponents. It showed off how strong hero students were, and it showed off just how great their fighting powers, stamina, endurance, and intelligence were. Naruto watched as Tetsutsu, who the headband landed next to, picked it up. The other students went after him instantly. -27 minutes later. Ha, this is mine, none of you are taking it from me. Momo had the headband in her grip as she held a shield in one hand, and a stun grenade in the other hand. Her body had lost a few pounds, and she didn't have the fat on her to create any more items other than what she was currently holding. She would need to play defense until the timer was up, which it would be up in less than 20 seconds. She was exhausted. The other students were exhausted too. The second any one of them had the headband, all of the others would fight them to take it. They were all sweating, and in some cases, flat out unable to use their quirk anymore if they tried. Almost 30 minutes of non-stop fighting was rough, even on trained students, even more so when you had a chaotic free-for-all. Momo grinned. She might not have beaten Naruto like she wanted, but this was still a victory to her. She was still the winner overall, and she could pull this out over Naruto in how she passed something he failed in. "Hey, how's it going?" Naruto stated as he walked up to her. How is he not sweating, how is he not exhausted? Surely his time as Kurama trained his stamina, but after all this fighting even he would be exhausted. Momo's exhausted mind thought as she raised up her shield to defend herself. Naruto pulled his fist back, and he slammed his knuckles into the steel of her shield at nearly full force. "Ah!" Momo shouted as the vibrations traveled through the shield, and it was knocked clear out of her hand. Naruto stepped forward, and with one smooth motion he pulled the headband from her hand. She prepared to throw the stun grenade, but Naruto put his palm up against her forehead and pushed her down to the ground. "Guess you lose again, don't worry, you fought really hard for me." Naruto taunted her as he wrapped the headband around his forehead. Time out. The winners for this round are Naruto Uzumaki, Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku Midoriya, and Fumikage Tokoyami. Bakugo never once had the headband stolen from him, while Todoroki lost his headband 21 minutes in when he could no longer handle the coldness of his quirk. Midoriya lost his headband in the first 3 minutes, but reclaimed it in the last 3, and finally Uzumaki lost his in the first second and reclaimed it in the last 5 seconds. Momo's jaw dropped. How? In the audience. This guy, he realized that the second anyone got the headband, they would become the target. Yes, all of his opponents were picked to counter him, but they isn't to say their teamwork would last the second he lost the headband. This was never a fight to beat Naruto, this was a fight for the headband. Nana explained to the heroes listening to her, as she went over Naruto's tactics. Toshinori nodded, impressed. He realized that, as his opponents were teenagers, no, as they were human, the second he was no longer the enemy, any semblance of teamwork would be destroyed when tossed the headband on the ground. Any planning they might have thought of would be thrown out of their minds. Everyone wanted to show off and look good for the cameras, but while his opponents wasted their stamina, Naruto was more than happy to sit back and wait. Toshinori explained it even further. His words started to spread as the heroes started to talk to each other. "Well fuck, that's super impressive then. That kid doesn't just have a flair for the camera that he showed in the race, but he's great at manipulating people. He got a hell of a mind for combat. Really, no fooling. I thought he was just being lazy, or he was afraid to fight so many people, but looking at his face I really can't see him as anything but damn scary for a student. How the hell is this kid not in the hero course? You guys don't even realize it, but look at Midoriya, Bakugo, and Tokoyami. They are all exhausted from fighting. If the next event is a fighting event, then even though the next event doesn't start for another 3 hours, they still used a lot of stamina." Toshinori explained with serious respect in his voice for a boy that showed so much great promise as a hero, but just didn't seem to want to apply it to becoming a hero. Nana giggled to herself. "It's a good thing he isn't an evil villain then." Nana stated with a small laugh. She would keep Naruto's identity as Kurama a secret. After all, she said he wasn't an evil villain. She said nothing about him being a villain. Chapter 34. Izuku Midoriya vs Tamaki Amajiki. Katsuki Bakugo vs Nijire Hado. Fumikage Tokoyami vs. Forfeited. Naruto Uzumaki vs Mirio Togata. So, unlike other sports festivals, because of the charity prize this year, they will be having students from multiple years going at it with each other. Of course, the big three of the third years all made it to the third event, and lucky Tokoyami, his opponent, forfeited. Naruto thought to himself as he looked at the TV that was playing in the room he was relaxing in. While the school was doing a ton of fun student events, mini-events that weren't part of the actual challenges, he was taking this time to try and relax enough to replenish his lost resources. Great, just great. Mirio Togata, the strongest student at UA Academy, Naruto knew about the guy. Mirio was a student who was considered to be the top candidate for the #1 hero spot when All Might eventually retired. He was believed by quite a few to be stronger than the vast majority of pro heroes, being a mere student on par with heroes like Endeavor when it came to battle powers. Izuku and Bakugo were going to lose. The UA Big Three were flat out considered to be above the level of most pro heroes, and were all considered to be able to become top pro heroes when they graduated. To say his fellow first years were going to be outclassed and outmatched was an understatement. Of course, I have an advantage. Mirio's quirk is permeation, it lets him pass through solid objects. I've seen his fighting style firsthand when I took down Sir Night-Eye, and I know how his quirk works in combat. Naruto thought to himself as he looked at the TV screen some more, with his brow furrowing. He had defeated Mirio as Kurama, but that was because the two had quirk aspects that negated each other. When he fought Mirio and took his part of his costume, he learned that when he fought Mirio that his spatial awareness had been the greatest strength against Mirio's permeation. Knowing the exact moment that Mirio was going to attack, and dodging at the last second thanks to instinct, had been extremely important. Nervous Kurama. Not really Muffin Top, I already know how my opponent fights and how I can beat him. I just need to use my secret weapon against him. Naruto grinned when Momo opened the door and greeted him. Her using his villain name showed that she had come alone, and she came in a cheerleader outfit? Naruto questioned it with his eyes. We were tricked by Kaminari and Mineta to wear these. Secret weapon? You can't use your poison without revealing your fighting style to be the same as Kurama's fighting style. Momo pointed out as she sat next to Naruto, and she passed him a can of soda. Here, figured you were thirsty. Momo was calm and collected, but she had to admit she was a little curious. Naruto poked her arm. Use your quirk. Naruto told her, and she shrugged and raised her arm up. Nothing. Toad poison can't negate quirks. My mother's quirk let her create chains that could negate quirks. While my father's quirk was toad, a little bit of my mother's quirk mixed into it. I can produce any poison a toad can produce. Of course, it doesn't work great on mutation-type quirks, just emitter and transformation-type quirks. Naruto mentioned as he showed the tip of his finger didn't contain his usual white poison, but had a golden-yellow poison mixed into the usual white poison. By using a super weak poison, and mixing it with the quirk-negating properties, I can stop others from using their quirks. If I mixed it with a strong poison, it might be possible for me to completely destroy somebody's ability to use their quirk. Naruto mentioned as he shook his finger to get the poison off. Momo was a little surprised. You just told me something amazing. Yeah, and you're wondering why I don't use it more often now. It's because I can't use it a lot, I'm affected by it too to some degree. For the next few minutes, I won't be able to make any poison at all. Naruto mentioned as he touched Momo's face, and nothing happened to her at all. Naruto poked her a few more times, and she moved her face to avoid getting poked. I'm trying to poison you right now. Naruto informed her. Momo nodded. Yeah, I get it. So, this really isn't an ability you can use a lot. It's the strongest part of your quirk, but it has the biggest weakness to it. Momo realized why he had never used it against the heroes before. When fighting heroes, you never knew when you were going to be fighting another hero. For Naruto, who used that very poison to defeat countless heroes, not having access to his usual poison would be a crippling handicap for him. It was powerful, but ultimately it was unusable in any situation where Naruto might want to use his regular poison. Truly, a double-edged sword. Why tell me though? Momo asked when she realized that Naruto was revealing something super secret to her. He just grinned. 'Cause you won't tell anyone, and you knowing this and not being able to tell anyone is just going to eat at you deep down inside. You might know something about me nobody knows, but nobody will ever believe you. Naruto teased her, and her jaw dropped. It was true. She changed the subject. By the way, I can here not only to give you a soda, but to ask you if Kurama stole the girl's underwear. We went to change back into our regular clothes, but all of our underwear vanished. Jairu and Mina are freaking out, since their signed Kurama panties they wear for good luck are missing now. Momo stated as she revealed something that didn't seem to surprise Naruto all that much. So he did do it. Nope, didn't DP it, sounds boring to steal panties when the girl isn't wearing them. Anyway, I'm not much of a pervert out of costume. The entire perverted Kurama thing is kind of limited to when I'm in character and can really let loose those desires. Naruto denied having anything to do with the panty theft. Momo frowned. Then who could have done it? Muffin Top, let's drop the subject before you tempt me into stealing the panties you are wearing right now. Naruto deadpanned at Momo. She huffed at him. Like that's any different than what you usually do to me. I still remember when you did that thing with your, wait, that wasn't you. Momo realized that while Naruto had touched her a little, it was never really non-consensual in nature. He just tempted her and seduced her into wanting it. The only time there was penetration was when it was Himiko Toga disguised as Naruto. Naruto was completely innocent when it came to the biggest perverted moment between the two of them. Yeah, I really am sorry about Himiko doing that to you, by the way. I'm a big tease, but what she did went over the line. Naruto looked at Momo, and sincerely apologized for what his sidekick at the time had done to her. That was over the line even by his standards, and his perverted standards were pretty loose by most normal definitions. Momo looked awkward, and coughed into her hand. I wouldn't be opposed to things going that far again. Obviously not at school or any place inappropriate. I've given what happened with Toga a lot of thought, and I did realize that I wasn't angry at you for what she did. I was more angry at something else. Momo's face was burning red as she shifted around in the chair she was sitting in. This kind of thing was really hard for a girl her age to come out and say, even more so when being molested by Toga had made her realize some very new things about herself. She even realized how weird but nice her relationship with Kurama was, emphasis on the weird and nice part of that sentence. Momo blushed deeper, and changed topics again when she lost the courage to continue what she had been saying. I've been thinking about quitting UA, and giving up on becoming a hero. Momo stated slowly. She wasn't lying to cover for the fact she wanted to pursue a relationship with Naruto, she was being completely serious. She had been thinking about it. What? Naruto asked with a little shock at that. I've been watching you, and you do a lot of good stuff for society. Thanks to you being a villain, pro-heroes are getting even better at what they do. You're a positive influence on society, and you do it as a villain, and you aren't bound by hero rules either. I want to help people, really help them, and I've already been hampered by the rules. Momo admitted with a growing frown on her face. Naruto gave her a confused look. Still, you wanted to be a hero, do you want to give up your dream so easily? Naruto wasn't sure why he was trying to get her to change her mind. Momo took a piece of paper from her pocket. It was a costume design. When we were accepted into UA, we were asked to send in costume designs to help our quirks. My quirk is better the more skin I show, so I sent in a very revealing design that was designed to let me make full use of my quirk. Thankfully, my costume is still very good, but the rules placed a limit on me being an efficient hero. People might die in the future, because hero rules say I can't show more skin. Momo started off as she listed off the first thing that she had personally experienced with hero rules. She had commented on her hero costume to the other girls when they first got their uniforms, how she had wanted something more revealing. You're not wrong. Naruto frowned when he saw a girl tearing down her own dreams. Not only that, but my quirk lets me create anything so long as it is non-living. I can make poisons, antidotes, medicine, and a lot of things to help people fight villains and just save lives. But because heroes aren't classed as doctors, I'm not allowed to give people certain medications that will help them. Momo was getting slightly more confident. Momo looked at Naruto. Still, this is your dream, and you're giving up on it. Naruto argued against her, but he could still understand her. She wasn't wrong about this either. You killed a man, and saved thousands of the lives that the man had absorbed. Yeah, you're a villain, but the only time you've ever done something truly evil, thousands of lives were saved. I talked to one of Yamato no Orochi's victims in the hospital. They spent every second inside of that man, being mentally and physically tortured. You saved thousands from what is a living hell. Momo felt sickened by the thought of what happened to those people. A hero would have captured Orochimaru and put him back in a prison to hold him, but by doing that thousands of people would continue to suffer for a long, long time. Naruto had done the right thing. You want to become a villain? Naruto asked her when he realized what she was getting at. I want to help people, I want to people able to really help them without being forced to obey rules that make it harder. I want to help heroes get stronger like you, I want to save lives without needing to worry about rules and regulations like you do. Watching you as a villain, seeing the number one villain be a shining example of good, you're amazing, I want to be like you, I want to be better than you. Momo said with a smile growing on her face. Naruto smiled a little. She was being honest with him, he could see it in her eyes. That dash. You are a pillar of strength, you're a symbol of freedom, and you've helped me personally become a more confident person. When I was scared and frightened, you as a villain, helped me a hero, no other villain would do that. I want to be like you, I want to be with you. Momo stood up and turned to Naruto, grabbing his shoulders as she moved to sit in his lap. She looked at him from an advantageous position without letting go of his shoulders. Naruto, that all being said, I have something very important to request of you, if you want to listen of course. Momo's voice lowered a little into little more than a whisper. Naruto nodded his head. Sure. Naruto, will you take me as your partner in crime? Will you teach me how to become a villain who can really help people? Momo's tone was begging in nature. She wanted to be a hero, she wanted to be better than Naruto too. She had been putting a lot of thought into though, late at night she stayed up because of the thoughts she had been having. She wanted to be a real hero like Naruto. Momo, Hey guys, I just wanted to stop by and say I look forward to OH my god, Yamamo and Naruto are fucking. Mina screamed as she jumped back in shock. She saw the compromising position, saw Momo on top, and saw the way Momo was looking at Naruto, and instantly made an assumption. I've got to tell Toru, she totally called that you were crushing hard on Naruto with how you look at him in the lunchroom. Mina turned and got ready to run away. Momo jumped off of Naruto. Wait Ashido, it's not what you think. Momo started to run after Mina, but she was stopped when Naruto grabbed her hand. The answer is yes. Momo smiled brightly at Naruto, eyes sparkling with excitement when she got the answer she had been so nervous for. She turned around and rushed towards Naruto, grabbing him and wrapping her arms around him tightly. That was the day that Kurama got his partner. Chapter 35. Wow, this year's first years really are something else. That boy Midoriya really challenged Tamaki, and the kid Bakugo even won his match with Nijire. You're Naruto Uzumaki, the boy that Midnight adopted, right? Naruto was face to face with Mirio, the hero Lemillion and student of Sir Night-Eye, and the student who was stronger than most of the top 10 of the heroes. It was flat out stated that this boy had the greatest chance of becoming the number 1 hero, even more so than the number 2 hero Endeavor. Naruto smiled. Yeah, and you're Lemillion, we've got a couple of seconds until the match starts. So, my quirk is Toad, I can do anything a Toad can do and more thanks to a mutation my quirk has thanks to my mother. Naruto extended his hand towards Mirio with a grin on his face. Mirio took his hand. Ah, so we're playing on a fair field then. If you'll tell me what your quirk is, I will do the same to make sure we fight fairly. My quirk is dash. Permeation. The thing about popular heroes is that their quirks are public news. You can make parts of your body intangible. You've got a really weak quirk, I'm impressed you've come as far as you've come with it. Naruto stated with a happy smile. There was no tension between them. Mirio smiled. Wow, most people call my quirk unfair after knowing me. You're the first to call it dash. Start. Mirio had a kick from Naruto slip through the side of his head, because the instant the fight started Naruto stopped smiling and Mirio became more serious as well. The kick would have crushed a regular person's skull. He's attacking with an almost lethal force. Mirio thought as he started to throw a punch at Naruto, and Naruto raised his hand to block it. The fist phased through Naruto's block, and the second he went through Naruto's guard, Naruto opened his mouth. The second his fist would have touched Naruto, Naruto's tongue shot out of his mouth and darted like a bullet at Mirio's fist. Mirio was forced to make his fist intangible once more as it phased through Naruto's tongue and his stomach. Naruto kicked off the ground and landed a couple of feet away. Mirio pressed his advantage to end the match as quickly as he could, and he ran at Naruto ready to use his quirk the second that he needed to. Naruto jumped 30 feet in the air before he could reach him, higher than Mirio could hope to jump on his own. Mirio seemed to appear behind Naruto anyway, with his fist already a foot away from Naruto's head and quickly approaching. Naruto was gone the next second as he went flying to the ground before Mirio's fist could touch him. Naruto's tongue was stuck to the ground, and acted like a grappling hook that allowed him to rip himself out of the air before any attack could land. With a quick twist of his neck, while Mirio was still in the air, Naruto shot his tongue once more at Mirio like a bullet. It will phase through him, and he will land on the ground dash, Naruto thought with a sly smile on his lips. Mirio smiled as well. I will phase through his tongue and land on the ground, I'll phase through and pop up dash, Mirio phased through Naruto's tongue and dropped towards the ground. The second he touched the ground, his entire body phased through it with his clothes being left behind on the ground. He appeared out of the ground in front of Naruto, looking at Naruto expecting Naruto be turned around. Naruto was still facing him. In front of me as he expects me to predict him to appear behind me. Naruto thought as he had his fist extended through Mirio's chest. Mirio had turned his quirk on at the last second, the very last second as a slightly surprised smile overcame his features. He looked at Naruto's challenging grin as Naruto's tongue darted back into his mouth. A shadow was quickly approaching him from behind, and he saw a large chunk of rock had been ripped out of the ground by Naruto's tongue earlier. I see, he didn't predict I would appear behind him. He manipulated me so that I would assume he would predict me, and forced me to play by his rules. This guy Mirio started to sink through the ground again as his view of Naruto left him. He popped up out of the ground behind Naruto, unable to change his direction to go anywhere else. He glanced and saw that Naruto had jumped up, and the rock was still flying at him. He jumped and rolled to the side, dodging the rock physically instead of using his quirk. The rock shattered part of the arena floor, and Mirio looked and saw Naruto land on the ground with his back facing him. The crowd was silent. "Is just as amazing as before," Naruto thought as he flexed his fingers. They had opposite fighting styles down to their very core. Naruto manipulated his opponents into acting ways he wanted them to act. Naruto looked at his opponents, learned how they fought, and then used that knowledge to trick his opponents into fighting a certain way against him. He was a mental predator who preyed on the mental weaknesses of his opponents, and used his own unpredictability against his opponents to make them put more thought into their own actions. Mirio didn't manipulate at all, he reacted and predicted what his opponents would do. Then he would make a thought-out plan on how to deal with his predictions, using his quirk to make surprise attacks and his superior physical strength to take down most enemies with the first blow. Naruto's advanced spatial awareness meant that Mirio's surprise attacks were useless. Mirio's permeation meant that Naruto's attacks weren't going to hit normally. "You're amazing," Naruto and Mirio stated as they looked at each other with visible respect in their eyes. Blue eyes looked into blue eyes. In the audience. Whoa, that was a pro-level battle. Back in my day there weren't any pros that could keep up with those two. Nana couldn't stop but marvel in shock when she saw just how strong the two teenagers were. Quirks had evolved over the years that she was gone, growing stronger and stronger, but the skill these two were displaying was on a level that she had a hard time comprehending. Orochimaru was skilled, but only because he had access to the fighting styles of all the heroes and villains he had absorbed into himself. That had been the most skilled villain from before even her generation. So this is Lemillion. Nightai's student, he's incredibly strong. Toshinori thought to himself as he observed the battle. Still, his opponent was no less amazing. What did we just watch? In less than a minute, these two students have shown off some serious skill. Now it looks like they have taken a moment to think up their plans. Present Mick's voice shouted through the arena. On the stage. "You are a general studies student, right?" Mirio asked with some confusion. "Last round, you won your match by simply stealing your headband back from the other students at the last second," Mirio stated, since he had seen that event happen on a playback of it. His opponent had done nothing last event. Naruto smiled. "I just didn't want to waste my stamina or show off my skills. Also, put some pants on, dude, your cock is hanging out." Naruto pointed out to Mirio, the man covering his dick with one of his hands to make sure it wasn't visible to everyone. He had been very thoughtful about that, but Mirio just rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. Naruto shrugged. "Sorry, it happens. How did you figure out where I was going to pop up?" "You can go through things, but you were still affected by gravity. It made me think that when you go underground, and go tangible again, the way your body is positioned affects where you come back up. So you plan out your body's position as you go underground, and with very little ways to maneuver underground, I can guess within a 2-meter range where you will come up," Naruto stated as he crouched down and touched all of his fingers to the ground. He and Mirio were sizing each other up. "One hit. I might be intangible, but to me, you seem like the untouchable one so far. You've already stopped 15 of my attacks," Mirio stated as he took up a fighting stance again, shoulders tensed up as he was forced to admit. Naruto grinned. "You didn't throw that many attacks." "That's right, you stopped me before I could try. Some toads have an extremely strong poison, and I noticed that some parts of your body had a little poison on them. Whenever I was in a position to attack you, I noticed attacking you would have meant getting poisoned. You stopped me from throwing a punch before I could attack at all. I count that," Mirio stated, and Naruto's tongue dropped out of his mouth a little and touched against the ground. "Then you better dodge this." "Deux d'explosion parade." Naruto took a massive breath and his entire body buffed up in less than a second. His body buffing up ripped most of his clothes to shreds, and the poison coating his body went flying off of him in all directions. Mirio phased through the ground right as the poison was about to touch him, and he popped up out of the ground as Naruto's body debuffed itself back to normal size. Naruto coated his skin with poison again. Before Mirio could attack, Naruto buffed himself up and shot more poison out. Mirio jumped backwards and went intangible as the poison went through him, and when he landed he rushed towards Naruto. Only for Naruto to do it again before Mirio could catch his breath or make any sort of advancement towards Naruto. Naruto's body kept exploding in size and decreasing, poison constantly scattering in the air around him as Mirio was forced to constantly go intangible across his entire body in order to dodge it. "I can't breath," he figured out one of the weaknesses of my quirk. He's giving me a choice, either stay tangible long enough to breath, or dodge his omnidirection poison. I can either breath and get hit, or pass out from lack of oxygen. Mirio thought with a twinkle in his eye. Naruto had figured out that if everything passed through his body, that meant he was unable to breath as well. When he used his quirk over his entire body, it meant him being unable to take in any more oxygen, and all the oxygen in his body left his lungs as well. His body could only go so long with no oxygen, and no time to process what little oxygen it was getting. Will you pass out first, or will I run out of poison? Let's see how long we can last. Naruto stated as Mirio's cheeks started to turn pale as he touched the ground, only to jump into the air and turn intangible as the second sprinkle of poison approached him. It's only my weakest poison, but as long as he thinks it's strong poison he'll keep dodging it. Naruto thought with a grin as he took his next breath. Mirio was already starting to feel the effects of the strategy, and he looked around for anything he could take cover behind. His eyes widened when he saw his only chance. He repositioned his body and phased through the ground right before the next wave of poison could hit him. Mirio reappeared behind the rock that Naruto had thrown into the stage earlier, large enough for him to hide away from the poison and take the breath that his body so desperately needed. Crunch! Mirio took a hit to the chin the second he opened his mouth to take a breath, and Naruto's tongue shot out of the ground and slammed into his chin with enough force to smash Mirio's skull into the rock he was hiding behind. With a loud crunch, the rock cracked under the force of the hit, and Mirio collapsed on the ground. Naruto shrank his body down and stood up, his tongue coming out of the hole in the ground it had made. Earlier, I threw that rock with my tongue knowing it had zero chance of hitting you. You see, the weakness behind Toad Explosion Parade is that the poison I use for it is so weak it would only sting a little. I figured out the weakness of your quirk the second you used it to phase through the ground. Naruto stated as he started to walk towards Mirio. Mirio couldn't move. He physically couldn't move his body, and his head felt like it was spinning as he was finally starting to get his breath back. You're super smart and strong, but you're human and you need to breath. You dodged and dodged my attacks, all while trying to think of a way to get away to breath. As your body got weaker due to lack of oxygen, and it got harder to think for you, you saw the rock on the field as the best way for you to catch your breath. I threw that rock, knowing eventually you would hide behind it to breath, so while you were dodging, my tongue was underground digging a hole to attack you with the second you took that breath. Naruto stated as he leaned down and looked at Mirio in the eyes. Mirio's eyes were glazed and unfocused, his body still suffering from a severe lack of oxygen, but it was quickly recovering as he was able to breathe normally again. So while your body was oxygen deprived and weak, I knew there would be a split second where your guard would be completely down. The very second you took the breath that would keep you alive, you would be completely defenseless to my attack. You're super durable, so this rock served as a good way to make sure I hit you hard enough. You won't be able to move for a while, I shook your brain. Naruto stated as he knocked his fist up against the rock, and a grin overcame his face as he extended his hand down towards Mirio's forehead. He bumped his fist up against it. You're so cool, dude, this was my loss. I can accept that I lost to somebody like you, and next time, I'll be the one to land the winning hit. Mirio grinned as he regained his ability to speak. Mirio, who could phase through all Naruto's attacks. Naruto, who could dodge all Mirio's attacks. Mirio predicted his opponents. Naruto manipulated his opponents. Their fighting styles were both similar and completely opposite. Heh! Naruto laughed a little. Ha ha ha. Mirio laughed as well, and the two of them ignored the crowd going wild after it had been silent for so long. By the way, since we're both naked right now, I would prefer to keep this conversation kind of short so I can go get dressed. I kind of made my clothes explode off my body to beat you. Right. They were both naked. On national TV. Chapter 36. Bakugo was currently fighting off against the third-year student Tamaki. Of course, people were a lot less pumped for that fight considering how a general studies student had defeated a practically pro hero who had the strength and skill to be considered the next person to inherit the title of #1 hero. That fact alone made any fight after that far less impressive to watch alone. Wow, I've got to admit that I didn't think you could fight without using your usual ways to win. Momo stated as she walked towards a mostly naked Naruto. He had a towel around his waist, with a change of clothes in her hands. She had created them herself with her quirk when he sent her a text message that he was in the changing rooms. Her cheeks were a little red at his nudity, but not as red as his were. After all, he had been naked not only on national television, but also the internet since a lot of streams went out online as well. While the television could be censored using real-time censor software, the internet was far harder to censor with ease. Grrrrrrrr. Angry? Momo asked as she put the clothes down on the table. I didn't know what kind of underwear you preferred, so I made boxers and briefs. Looks like Bakugo is doing really well. Momo stated when she looked at the TV setup in the changing room, and saw how well Bakugo was doing. Sun Eater is stronger than most pro heroes, the same with Nijire-chan. Bakugo's explosion quirk has a close combat advantage in tight quarters over Nijire, and she's not innately violent. Among the big three, she's stronger than some pro heroes, but a good hit will take her out. Tamaki, Sun Eater, is stronger than her, but Bakugo is going to win despite being weaker. Naruto stated as he started to get dressed. Momo looked at him. What makes you dash? Still naked? What makes you say that? Momo quickly turned around when she realized that she should stay turned around until Naruto told her otherwise. Bakugo was the most talented fighter in their class, other than maybe Todoroki, and while Todoroki was stronger than a few pro heroes, neither of them were strong enough to be directly compared to the big three on skill. Tamaki beat Midoriya, and Midoriya has the most firepower of any of the students in our class, even if he hurts himself. Momo couldn't see how Naruto was getting that outcome. Naruto looked at the screen and saw Tamaki struggling against Bakugo. I've gone against Tamaki before, and his quirk is impressive. He could never beat Bakugo though, as he is. He just isn't able to handle people with personalities like Bakugo, and while he is powerful enough to win, Bakugo is skilled enough to avoid his attacks long enough for Tamaki to lose confidence. Naruto already knew how the outcome was going to go. Bakugo beat Nijire simply because of how his quirk had a serious advantage over her own in close combat, and how he himself was a far more furious fighter. Bakugo was going to beat Tamaki because Tamaki would not be able to handle Bakugo's vile personality. Give up. I surrender. Whoa, you called it. Momo watched as Bakugo got Tamaki pinned to the ground and threatened him. Tamaki had been losing confidence the longer the fight went on, and the second Bakugo landed a blow, it would seem his lack of confidence finally kicked in fully. Think he could have beat Mirio? Momo asked Naruto without looking at him. Naruto didn't need to think about it. Not a chance in hell. Bakugo's aggressive style and nature would be his undoing. Bakugo might be smart enough to figure out how Mirio's quirk works, but he has no way to counter him. Explosion is a powerful multi-use quirk, but look at him, his hands and shoulders are trembling. Using his own quirk has an impact on his body when he does it too much. Naruto explained as he pointed out the slight tremble in Bakugo's limbs. His quirk was strong, and it was an emitter type, but the stronger an emitter type quirk was, the stronger the drawbacks to using it. Momo bit her thumb as she analyzed Bakugo the best that she could, trying to take all of him in. Naruto was noticing things she wasn't noticing, and she needed to boost her analytical abilities if she wanted to be his partner in villainy. Does your quirk do the same thing? Of course it does. No quirk is perfect. While I can use most of my Toad abilities with no drawbacks, using my poison or camo abilities has a drawback to them. Naruto stated to her without bothering to hide it. Also, I'm not an emitter type, I'm a mutation type. I've got all the strengths and weaknesses of a Toad. You're an emitter type, you use your fat cells to create stuff. You don't have an unlimited supply. Naruto stated as he finished getting dressed. Bang! Bakugo collapsed on the arena as a bullet went through his gut and pierced Tamaki's chest, the two young heroes collapsing to the ground as the audience screamed in horror. What? Momo shouted in horror as well when she saw that happen on the TV, and Naruto frowned deeply when he viewed it with her. Somebody was retarded to attack an event with thousands of heroes watching in the stadium. Kurama, the #1 villain. That's your costume design. Momo stated when she saw 11 people drop out of the air and touch the ground in the middle of the stadium. 3 of the people were holding children with guns pressed against their heads. They were wearing costumes that could be described as similar to Naruto's villain costume, but not an inch of their skin was visible. Their heads were covered in helmets painted to look like Kurama's head, and they were wearing full body armor that seemed small and light enough to allow ease of movement. They've got children. Momo whispered as she covered her mouth. Naruto grit his teeth as fury filled his blue eyes. I'm Kurama 7, and nobody is allowed to get out of their seats. The second a single hero tries anything, one of the hostages gets their brains blown out. A male in costume called out as one of the females put a gun closer to the child's head. We have a person with a quirk that can watch all of you at the same time, so we'll know. None of you heroes can make a single move against us right now. They're evil. They're going to die. Since I became #1 villain, I made sure other villains knew that if I ever saw them kill a child on purpose, I would personally end them. Naruto growled as he watched the situation play out with hate in his eyes. He had become the top villain, and he sent a message through the villain network that he didn't want to see a single villain attack a child on purpose. He gripped his fists together tight enough that his knuckles were stark white, and his palms were bleeding. Bang. We saw that, and that is one less hostage. Keep the cameras rolling, because we have a message. We are the Kurama 11, and we wish to prove ourselves better than the man who enslaved us, Orochimaru. Fucking damn it, I'm still dealing with that asshole's issues? These are his victims who were released, guess years of torture broke their minds. Naruto cursed when he realized these people were indeed his problem to deal with. The largest man of them was holding a sack, and he opened it up and tossed the contents on the ground in an unceremonious heap. You see, we wanted to get Kurama to come to us by attacking the heroes he has bested and destroying the clothes he had taken. I want this shown far and wide, because Kurama, if you're watching. Kurama 7 stated as he cameras panned in and showed a hero on the ground. Her white hair stained in blood. Her beautiful body, broken and beaten to a pulp, naked as the day she were born as the only clothes she wore were ripped from her and replaced by her own blood stains and bruises. She was beaten to the point of unconsciousness, and her legs were bent at unnatural angles. Mirko! Those bastards! Naruto growled when he realized that they must have attacked Mirko during the few hours that he had been doing the school events. Mirko was the only hero that he had completely stripped naked over the course of their many face-offs. They beat her within an inch of her life, and she would die if she didn't get medical attention within a few more hours. Kurama, we've got 2 hostages left, you have 1 hour to arrive at this stadium. This hero here will be your hourglass. Bang. That hurts. Mirko woke up with a shout as she was shot in the leg, and started to bleed fresh again. Mirko has 1 hour to live, she's unable to stop the bleeding herself. Can you watch as a woman who loves you dies while you do nothing? We want your position as the top villain needs to actually be evil to have that title, don't you think? I'm going to kill them. Naruto stated, before he threw a bag up out of his stomach, and unzipped it to show his villain costume was inside of it. Momo froze a little. Not in fear of Naruto and his desire to kill, and knew that the road of villains would be paved with blood. She knew he had killed the villain Orochimaru, who even heroes refused to kill since heroes weren't supposed to kill. She froze because she looked at the TV screen and saw a corpse, 2 students bleeding on the ground, and a pro hero from the top 10 beaten and dying as well. What should we do? We? You're not involved in this, it's me, you want to come with me, as my partner? Naruto asked Momo. She looked at him as he stripped and started to get changed into his villain costume, and she nodded her head. She pulled her top off and used her quirk, as clothes started to come out of her body. She created an orange shoulder cape with a hood on it, and wrapped it around her shoulders, and a matching black face mask to go with the one he himself wore. Her shoulder cape covered only half her breasts, and she started to get changed into a pair of black shorts with a red belt. I am your partner now. Momo. I'm your partner, honestly though, I'm glad I told you about this before this happened. What is the luck that I would be put to the test so soon? Momo tried to sound brave, but she was still shaking with some fear. She pulled her shorts up, and lifted her top up and used 2 band-aids to cover her nipples. Her villain costume would allow her to hide her quirk. With her loose shoulder cape, she could make objects come out of her body without it being shown that she herself was creating them. The loose nature of it and its revealing form both allowed her to more effectively use her quirk and hide her quirk as a summoning quirk or some other variant of creation quirk. Momo pulled the mask up to hide half her face, and pulled the hood up to hide most of her hair. Momo dash. Matatabi. My villain name is Matatabi, since through villainy, I'll travel again through the roots of real heroism. Momo stated as she shivered in fear. She was breaking a sweat already, with good reason. She had picked this name, since it would represent her using villainy to return to the road that she truly wanted to travel. She would use her brand of villainy to help heroes become better heroes, and get rid of the villains that they couldn't get rid of. Naruto pulled his mask and hood up. Momo dash. I dash. Momo, be back up, don't come out there with me. They beat Mirko, they are way more powerful than you. So, while I fight them, watch how they fight for me. Use that time to find some way to use your quirk to help me. Being my partner doesn't just mean fighting with me, it means support as well. Naruto told her as he stormed off towards the door of the changing room. Momo looked at him go, and she nodded her head. She was Matatabi. He was Kurama. Kurama was pissed off. Chapter 37. Yes, this sheer hatred and rage, even now I can feel it. All for One couldn't help but laugh as he felt Naruto's primal fury as he listened to the TV. The bond that he pushed onto Naruto, allowing him to sense the young man's strong emotions, was paying off now. He could feel that the key to unlocking the quirk he had gifted the boy was finally ready. A quirk that All for One himself placed a limiter on when transferring this particular quirk. It was quite a rare quirk after all, and he knew of only 2 other people who possessed this particular quirk, other than Naruto of course. In the stadium. Kurama, he actually showed up. Toshinori grit his teeth as he looked at the hostage situation, and knew even he couldn't do anything at the moment. He was among the entire audience of heroes who were forced to watch as 2 innocent children still had guns held to their heads. The second he showed up at all, those innocent lives would be gone in a flash that even he wasn't fast enough to stop. Nana frowned. She felt a chill down her spine. This feeling? I've felt this feeling before. Looking at him right now? I can't help but feel a familiar fear. Nana was shivering a little when she looked at Naruto walking into the stadium's arena in his full costume. Toshinori looked at her in shock. Fear? You don't feel it? You've never felt this before? Nana couldn't believe that Toshinori feel this familiar feeling. Toshinori looked at Kurama again. Now that you mention it, no. That's not possible. Toshinori shivered when his own eyes widened in shock. He stood up from his chair. The instant he even started to stand up, the gun was held tighter towards the children's heads as the villains looked in his direction knowingly. He sat down quickly, reminded that he had no other options but to let Kurama handle this however he saw fit. Kurama was silent. Kurama didn't tell a single joke when he appeared on the scene. With Naruto. Cool? Kurama? Mirko groaned in pain as she tried to move. She saw her nemesis walking towards them very slowly, and she looked up into his eyes. Mirko froze in fear. Those eyes. So this is Kurama in person? The person Orochimaru wanted to possess more than anything? Well, you're impressive. I want to possess your body, but I'm not Orochimaru so I can't possess you. But I want to. Kurama too called out as she looked towards Naruto approaching. She was stunned, since she had seen him before when she was inside Orochimaru being tortured. Orochimaru had been obsessed with this boy. Bakugo groaned in pain, and he tried to move, but the bullet hole in his chest was keeping him down. If he moved too much, the bleeding would worsen and become completely fatal. Still, the rage inside of him demanded that he hurt the ones who shot him. Kurama, why the hell? Bakugo stopped when he saw the approaching villain. Bakugo started to tremble the second he saw those eyes. 10, 9, 8, 7. Kurama was counting. Is that some sort of threat? Kurama 4 stated as he glanced around for any of Kurama's usual tricks that he would play against heroes. Kurama 4 died. Naruto moved the second he said 6 and his feet both kicked Kurama 4 in the chest, and both Naruto and Kurama 4 went flying together as the children Kurama 4 was holding was free from his clutches. Kurama 4 hit the wall as his body armor inverted on himself, his chest crushed inward as all of his internal organs were destroyed by either the double kick or hitting the concrete wall. 5, 4, 3. Naruto stood up and turned around, and he started to walk towards the remaining members of the Kurama 11, now the Kurama 10. Expansion. Human bowling ball. A member of the Kurama 10 didn't like that their teammate was murdered so casually. His entire body expanded greatly as he formed a ball, and started to speed towards Naruto with intent to flatten and kill. Kurama 8 died. The second he got close, Naruto dodged to the left and aimed a well-timed punch at the top of his helmet. The punch sank true, and the top of his helmet caved into his skull. His body shrank in size, back to normal, and rolled across the ground some more as Naruto continued to walk towards the rest. 2. Release the child. Kurama 7 stated as he gave the order quickly, realizing why their now confirmed enemy was counting down. Naruto stepped next to the child. This child was an orphan. She was adopted 6 months ago to this date. She loved picking flowers and pulling the petals off. She dreamed of traveling to Spain, and meeting a really cute boy there one day. She was kind, and friendly, and though she got jealous easily, she was a good kid. Naruto stated as he looked down at the girl. One of his kids. This child had been one of the girls who had lived at the Yuzu orphanage with him, and he had helped her get adopted to a family who would love her and give her a better life. He remembered all of his kids, he helped raise them and let them go to their future families. They were all an important part of his heart. Naruto Uzumaki. Oh shit? Midnight had a very sudden realization as she looked at Kurama. She recognized that girl now too, and she remembered where she had saw the child as well. That girl had been a resident of the Yuzu orphanage, and that allowed the rest of the pieces to fall into place as she dropped to her knees. There was only a single person she knew who would have such intimate detail of the orphans who lived at that orphanage, knowing those children's dreams. A possibility that she had become blind to when she had decided to look the other way, subconsciously of course, the second that this man had become her family. Her son, Naruto Uzumaki, was Kurama. Villain name, Kurama. So what? Orochimaru used us as tools for our quirks, all to capture you. What is a child's life when compared to our eternity of suffering? Kurama 7 shouted out when he realized that they were being ignored, treated as less than the child they killed. Do you know how many heroes we hurt? Naruto didn't look away from the child. So? Mirko was shocked when she heard that answer, since she herself was one of the heroes who had been horribly beaten. They are heroes, and you are villains. Even if you kill them, I won't lift a finger because every hero knows what they signed up for. They put their lives on the line, because it's part of their job. This child was innocent and did not sign up for this. Naruto stated as he reached down and placed his hand on her forehead, gently using his thumb and pinky to close her eyes. Naruto closed his own eyes. May her soul rest in peace. Quirk, Toad. So, even if we killed Mirko, you wouldn't have done anything to save her. How cold and heartless of you. Kurama 7 tensed up. Naruto opened his eyes, and looked towards the now Kurama 9. For a brief moment, they froze in fear. Mirko was silent. I wouldn't save the hero Mirko even if you were about to kill her. She's a hero who signed up for this life. I would still save her, but not because she's a hero I respect, but because she is important to me personally. Naruto admitted without fear, and he didn't even glance at Mirko. This wasn't about her. Mirko was not the focus of his attention. Naruto raised his hand up. A spiraling sphere appeared above his hand, appearing yellow in color and perfectly round in shape. It was a sphere filled with uncountable moving spirals that got denser the closer to the center it got. That girl's name was Supine, and her quirk was Rasengan. This was her quirk. I'm going to use this power to make sure that you never hurt another person again. Chapter 38. No hero had ever seen Kurama throw a punch. No civilian had ever seen Kurama attack a single person. Kurama was the top villain, the villain who nobody could picture without imagining him smiling as he teased heroes while stealing their clothes. Kurama was the most skilled villain the world had ever seen, using his poison quirk and a single touch to disable anyone who threw an attack at him, all without having to ever throw a single attack himself. All of Japan knew of Kurama. The Kurama had taken down the top 10 heroes all at the same time. The most skilled villain. The most unpredictable villain. The happiest villain. The uncatchable villain. The unstoppable villain. The villain who always had a smile in his eyes. This. I'm Shaken Kropka. Tashinori, All Might himself, felt the same fear he felt when he came face to face with All for One the first time. He wasn't even standing, the sheer cold fury that radiated off the young man who had yet to take a single step since he had murdered 2 of the villains who had made him angry. Kurama was the top villain, and he was angry. Kurama was the most skilled villain, and he was seeking blood. Kurama was the most unpredictable villain, and he going on the offense. Kurama was the happiest villain, and he was in a cold fury. Kurama was an unstoppable, uncatchable, unpredictable villain who had bested each and every hero he had ever come in contact with. Using only a single quirk, Kurama had done what no other villain had ever managed to do and take down the top 10 and All Might himself several times. Kurama was a happy villain who didn't hurt anyone, so nobody really felt how terrifying he was. The world was now seeing just how horrifying such a villain truly was. Kurama with one quirk became the top villain. You're next. To the world, Kurama said those words before he rushed into action and went headlong into the enemy as they pointed their guns or got their quirks ready. He's going after Dash. All of you. Naruto stated as he cut off the woman who spoke by flicking some of his poison into the eye holes of the helmet she was wearing. He passed by her as she collapsed on the ground, twitching and convulsing in agony. By the time Naruto got in front of the next enemy as they all finished preparing their quirks and weapons, it was already too late. Naruto blasted the person in front of him in the chest, sending him flying across the stadium and into the wall with a large indent in the center of his torso. Naruto's foot lightly touched the ground, before he jumped backwards as gunfire shot where he had been standing. Mirko was shaking. This entire time. I've never fought him. Mirko came to the realization as a strange thought occurred to her. She was terrified. The Kurama 9 is now the Kurama 7. Kurama could have killed her whenever he wanted to, at any point since she started to chase after him. Every single day she chased him was a day that she could have very well died if her opponent had been the monster that was standing in front of her with his forearm covered in the blood of his enemies. His eyes held not even a speck of kindness in them that she was used to seeing. She saw nothing but a cold rage and the tears that he was shedding over the loss of the child's life. She would never catch him. I'll never attain his level, the gap between us is too large. I haven't gotten stronger in months, and he has so much potential left in him. His strength? Mirko felt a despair deep inside of her when she realized, and she truly hated admitting this to herself, that she would never reach the peak that Naruto was walking up. She couldn't even see the peak of his strength, while her own limits were so very clear to her now. Wait, we're so, run. A member of the villainous Kurama 7 started to run away, realizing that begging would do them no good now. Naruto pointed a hand at the man. His eyes were still cold. In a hidden location. You see? I realized something long ago. Because of their genetic immunity to my quirk stealing their quirks, I could never attain the negating chains that Kushina Uzumaki had. The quirk that could negate and destroy any other quirk, yet, if a child with that blood were to steal her quirk, using a cloned copy of All for One, well, that is another story. In the arena. A single golden chain. Naruto's eyes were so focused that he just did what felt right and thought about how he didn't want to allow even a single one of these people to escape. The urge to raise his arm felt natural to him, and just as natural as breathing, a long golden chain shot out of his palm towards the escaping member of the Kurama 7. Another quirk. Even when he fought Orochimaru, he only showed one quirk. Our information was way off. A separate member of the Kurama 7 kicked the chain off course before it could skewer the escaping member of their team. What? The chain changed directions and wrapped around him. Crunch. The chain squeezed him tightly, until all of his ribs shattered and inverted into his internal organs. The chain tossed him towards the still-running teammate, knocking them to the ground. The chain stabbed into the ground as Naruto himself leaned back and glared death at the martial artist left alive of the Kurama 6. You won't dash the youthful flames dash. Naruto gently ran his finger underneath the helmet of the Kurama 6 member, and he collapsed on the ground as Naruto created another Rasengan. Just as the golden chain came out of the ground and skewered another member of the Kurama 5 from behind. The Kurama 11 was now the Kurama 4. This wasn't a fight. Naruto. I've never seen his eyes so cold. This was one of his kids, of course he's going to go on a rampage. If somebody killed Naruto, I would do the same. Namuri thought as she watched her adoptive son slaughter and kill. This was a slaughter, not a fight. The Kurama 11 tried their best to put up a fight, but it would seem the Kurama 11 didn't know the difference between fighting against a hero and a villain. They had only ever fought heroes who they had strategies to beat, heroes who they had watched internet videos of Kurama himself beating. Kurama, the top villain. To the world. Kurama spoke. The Kurama 4 froze in fear, complete fear as the stadium itself had a complete silence go over it. The always happy villain was angry. This goes out to all of Japan, I guess. My name is Kurama, this nation's top villain. I love fun, and teasing heroes for the most part. There are very few things in this world that make me angry, truly angry like I am right now. Kurama's voice was calm. His voice was calm, but the fact that he was radiating with such a strong anger that several people in the audience were starting to throw up in their own mouths, was not something anyone could miss. The heroes in the audience who had personal encounters with Kurama felt the most fear, knowing the true monster that had spared their lives. He's got the potential to be. Nana Shimura, 7th user of One for All, was shaking in her boots as she thought of the darkest outcome. She knew Naruto personally for a while now, and she knew this wasn't like him. He was angry. Yet, even in this blind rage that he was in, he was keeping a very calm mind that was letting him think so clearly in battle. He looked towards the cameras, and the sheer hatred in his eyes was the very first thing the cameras caught. The country of Japan tasted fear. The country of Japan looked into Death's eyes. Death stared back. I don't hate heroes, and I don't hate villains who kill heroes either. The second a hero or villain ever kills an innocent child, then you've made me your enemy. This Kurama 11, they've crossed the line, and for that they have paid with their lives. Naruto stated very clearly. Naruto lifted his foot up off the ground, and showed 11 chains coming out of his foot and leading into the ground. 4 chains shot out of the ground behind each member of the now Kurama 4. The chains pierced their hearts, and it pierced the hearts of the already dead members of what was now the Kurama 0. Their corpses were all lifted high into the air, and tossed onto the ground in front of Naruto's feet in a pile. In another location. He's a true hero. A man spoke as his red eyes gazed at the cell phone screen of a dying hero with a wide smile on his face. His black, wild hair, pulled and spiked back, his blades covered in slight blood. His long and bumped tongue licked his lips as he picked up the cell phone and watched the screen with far more interest than before. I knew Kurama was amazing, but he's more than I imagined. He's truly worthy of being a hero, willing to make the world his enemy, to kill the villains that hurt the innocent. This was the second person. All Might was the first person, but this boy here, Kurama, was the second person he had ever deemed to be worthy of the title of a hero. This villain had more of the true hero spirit for protecting who needed to be protected than any of the false heroes. His power was amazing. A child is something that should be protected, cherished, and saved from harm. I can kill nearly anyone with the touch of my finger. Hidden location. Are you sure that you can control this boy? He's got all for one, and he's already got 2 powerful quirks under his belt. Kurohige spoke to the radio as he watched the television. He watched as Kurama stood on top of a pile of his enemies' corpses. No offense, master, but while you possess extreme power, this boy shows more promise with stolen quirks than you yourself do. Kurohige kept speaking with his voice showing concern. Yes, finally he's acting like a real villain. If only he would have done this to All Might. That would have been better than him killing some nobodies. Tamura stated with a twisted smile. I'm a villain, and this is my declaration to all those who disobey my rules. Anyone who hurts the truly innocent in this world will come face to face with me. With Naruto. And villains aren't like heroes, because we don't have to show any mercy. The second I hear a hero or villain kills a child, this pile of bodies grows larger. A hand touched Naruto's leg. Please, please, tell me all my suffering inside of Orochimaru, please tell me, it meant something. Your suffering never gives you the right to do what you did, so your suffering meant nothing. Naruto looked down, and saw one of the barely alive bodies was less dead than he thought. Naruto stepped on his head. Crunch. His neck snapped. I've now killed 12 people, and this number better not grow any larger, or else. Thus marked the day that Kurama became something more to heroes and villains alike. A deterrent. Chapter 39. For 3 days Naruto had been in a foul mood. Namuri had tried to mentally bring herself to confront Naruto for 3 days about his true identity as Kurama, but it was harder than anyone could imagine. Naruto killed 11, actually a total of 12 when counting Orochimaru, people now. As a hero, Namuri needed to confront him and bring him to justice for his actions. At the same time, it was legitimate self-defense as well since his opponents had committed murder on national TV and attacked students. Bakugo and Tamaki had been sent to the hospital for their bullet wounds, and Mirko was in intensive care for her many broken bones and both internal and external. Mirko wouldn't be able to return to hero work for at least 7 weeks as she recovered, and the wounds were too extensive for even Recovery Girl to use her quirk to heal away without killing Mirko from the stamina drain of it all. She would need light physical therapy, since she needed surgery to remove bone fragments from her spine. Naruto, at least legally speaking, couldn't be punished for the murders he committed since it was a legit act of self-defense. The same with Orochimaru. He's Kurama, and he killed. At the same time, he did it to protect the children of Japan. He did something that has been weighing on his mind so heavily. How can I even bring this up to him? Namuri bit her lip as she watched Naruto looking at the news on the TV. Kurama had been an icon villain in the news. Now there was a massive controversy. Kurama finally shows true colors? Kurama, anti-hero or villain? Kurama, the villain we need. Hero to children, but villain to heroes. The people of Japan were split in their views of Kurama at the moment. Just like she herself was conflicted, the news media as well were extremely conflicted. The Kurama 11 had gone on a hunt and put many heroes in critical condition. They stripped, beat, and humiliated the famous hero Mirko on national TV, killed a child and critically injured students as well. The deaths of those crazed villains was something many in the public saw as justice, something Kurama needed to be praised for. The other half of the coin. Many people saw Kurama's actions as needlessly cruel towards the mentally unstable, stating it wasn't Kurama's job to control the villain population. Many of the older generation saw Kurama's threat to villains, and his actions, as unforgivable since he had set an example of the Kurama 11. So, whatcha watching there, kiddo? News. Naruto's answer was swift and simple, and she sat down next to him on the couch. She twitched and fidgeted a little, and thought of how she could bring up the conversation. It's still all about Kurama killing the Kurama 11. Naruto stated with his eyes showing a hint of the rage that had been seen in Kurama's eyes a few days previously. The sports festival had been cancelled, and nobody even dared to stand in Kurama's way as he walked out of the stadium. And how do you feel about that? Namuri asked, seeing this as her way to bring up the topic. The Kurama 11 should be the only people that Kurama ever has to do this to. I hope that Kurama is never forced to kill again, and this serves as a lesson to other villains that children are off limits. Naruto's voice held a hint of sadness and guilt to it. Namuri sighed in relief. Naruto felt horrible that he had to take people's lives, but while he felt guilt, it was clear he didn't regret what he did either. He had a guilty conscience over what he did, but she could tell that he would do it again if he needed to. It seemed that Kurama's message had been mostly to villains, since heroes didn't attack children. Still, she found relief in the fact that he was conflicted over his own actions when he was in a cold rage. It meant he was a good person at heart. I see. Well, if you ever need to talk about your feelings. I know that little girl was one of your orphans. How is the family doing? Namiri asked, and she saw Naruto's fist grip whiten his knuckles. Devastated, they lost their children. No parent would ever feel good about losing their child, adopted or not. They were completely broken, they lost their only daughter. I hope other villains learn from this. I really do. Naruto gripped his fists together so tightly that his fingernails were digging into his skin. Namiri took a deep breath. Well, I do too. Kurama did something horrible by killing the Kurama 11, but I suppose this one time it could be classified as self-defense and justified. It was a hostage situation, and Kurama did what he needed to do to keep the hostages alive. Let's hope Kurama never needs to do this again. Namiri made a choice as she spoke. Naruto was her son. She was Midnight the hero, but even before she was a hero, she was now this boy's mother. She was Namiri, and this was her son Naruto. She was going to keep his villain status a secret, and she wouldn't even bring it up to Naruto until she needed to. Naruto wasn't some crazed killer or a villain who was always out for blood. This particular time his decisions had been guided by rage and a sense of danger. Now, we would like to introduce a special guest. Danzo Shimura, local politician, and his words on the subject. A wrinkled old man sat down next to the news reporter. Thank you. In the past, I've brought forth bills to dismantle this hero system and institute a far more efficient way of getting rid of villains. These events with Kurama show that the heroes are growing lax and weak, while the villains are getting stronger. Do you not agree? Who the hell is this guy? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow, since he had never heard of this dude before. Namiri groaned in annoyance. Danzo Shimura, an old crackpot with a vendetta against heroes. He's always proposing far harsher restrictions on heroes. He tried to propose a bill that would require all heroes to wear a standardized uniform. He's as close to a legal villain as it gets with how harshly he tries to take down heroes. Namiri could honestly saw she hated politics with a passion. She just wanted to be a hero, maybe get a small harem of cute boys to tease, and be surrounded by beautiful men who would take care of her every need, and be a good mother to her son. This guy made a few of those things very hard for her. Shimura? Naruto questioned. I don't deny that heroes, in the past, have helped to regulate and control the growth of villainy across Japan. Still, I don't believe I need to explain my views on the matter. Heroes are given far too much freedom to use their quirks for good, and because of that freedom they have become inefficient in their duties. This Kurama incident Kurama incident, call it the Kurama 11 incident. Naruto groaned under his breath. He hadn't been the one who decided to kill a child or take hostages at the sports festival. Shows that villains on par with our best heroes are out there. Kurama showed that he has access to several quirks, making identifying him using the quirk registry impossible. We don't have a hero who could catch him, and more villains will grow to become more powerful than the heroes. I believe it's time for a change for the better. Danzo spoke into the camera, his face never once changing from its harsh expression. His smile was one of power, somebody who was doing what he was doing to take power from somebody else. What can you propose better than our current hero system? Now, while I would like to abolish the hero system in its entirety eventually, right now I have had a lab I work closely with develop machines that should be capable of catching villains with a far higher catch rate than heroes. Danzo explained without revealing too much too soon. He waited for the reporter to give him his next question, where more would be revealed. Robots? Robots might have intelligence these days, but robots aren't strong or intelligent enough to ever challenge proper villains. The most intelligent robots were small robot bodies with no battle power. Namiri couldn't see where this was going. No machine could match the better villains out there. Automated numerous bionic unifiers, these robots, called the ANBU, will have a linked intelligence that allow them to observe, study, and capture any villain they go up against. They have more intelligence than humans, no emotions, and are completely loyal to humanity. These machines are designed with ways to counter common quirk types, and several uncommon ones. I've already got 350 of them built and programmed. Danzo explained with a more grim smile on his face. Do they work? Of course not. Namiri scoffed. Not machine could do her job better than her. They need to, with villains like Kurama out there and operating in the open, these so-called heroes who protect us just don't cut it anymore. They are human, and humans make mistakes that let villains escape. With my ANBU, we can lower the total villain percentage all the way down to less than 1% in a short period of time. Namiri scoffed again. Danzo pressed a button on his cane, and a floating sphere robot hovered towards the camera and floated in front of it. The ANBU. It was a clique robot with a perfectly round metal shell to it. It hovered above the ground, and while the metal surrounding it was pitch black, it had 6 holes in the front and panels on either side of it. Power lines ran across the outside surface of the sphere machine, and it had visible sensors on the top, front, bottom, sides, and back to allow it to see from all directions. Wow, and how do they work? I took the human element away from humans, studied it, and placed a perfected form of humanity into these machines. This is the future, a future where heroes aren't needed anymore, and we can have a peaceful Japan dash. Click. Naruto turned the TV off. I think I'm going to go lay down. Naruto told Namiri, and she nodded her head sadly. If Momo comes, tell her she can wake me up. Naruto asked his mother a request, and she nodded again. She didn't expect Naruto to be all smiled and sunshine for a while. He was still mourning the loss of one of the children he helped to raise after all. Chapter 40. She had never been on his level. She had never once been his equal. She had never had a chance against him. The Kurama 11. They absolutely destroyed me. Yet Kurama, who I didn't even know could fight, he destroyed them even more easily. Rumi thought as she stared up at the hospital ceiling with her eyes slightly glazed over. Her body was bandaged and her legs were in casts, as were her arms in slings. She could barely move out of bed without a nurse's help, and overall she had been rendered more pathetic than even the average civilian. Any villain could easily kill her right now, and she would be unable to fight back at all. Not that she would even try to fight back. Did you know that Kurama had multiple quirks? He never told me, he never even showed me a fraction of what he could do. Rumi thought as she dismissed the question asked of her. Since it was well known that she was the hero with the best relationship with Kurama, other heroes were pestering her about Kurama at the moment. Including a rather stressed All Might. Mirko. Toshinori, she didn't know. Nana stated as she put a hand on Toshinori's shoulder, to stop him from pestering the woman any further. Things were different now, as much as she approved of Kurama as a villain, and while she was conflicted about what he did in the stadium, the fact remains he had the quirk of her greatest enemy. She hated herself for thinking it, but he was now different in her eyes. She needed to make sure that he wouldn't become the next all-for-one. I'm a fool, an idiot. I'm a naive fool. Rumi couldn't even roll onto her side and turn away from the two heroes who were sitting next to her bed. To those next to her, her words didn't make much sense. She had tears in her eyes, the bitter sting of betrayal was still so very fresh in her mind. She shouldn't feel this way. She did though. You're a worthy hero, you didn't do anything wrong. You wouldn't understand, this isn't about being a hero. I thought I was close to him. I thought that we had something special, that we were closer in so many ways than anyone else. I barely knew anything, the gap between us. I was too foolish to see how large it was. Rumi started to cry more earnestly. Toshinori was a little shocked, since comforting other heroes wasn't something he knew how to do nearly as well as others. Nana understood what the hero Mirko was sad about, but more than that, she understood what the woman Rumi was heartbroken over. You aren't a fool, loving somebody isn't wrong. Even in the stadium, he admitted that you were important to him personally. Kurama is a good person. I think he's a good person. Nana raised a hand to silence Toshinori. He wasn't going to argue. He's a good person, but he has a power that is very dangerous. Now we know that he knows how to use a very bad quirk, and we're afraid it could corrupt him. The other day, Kurama was overtaken by pure rage, while his actions are unforgivable by the law, they are understandable. You weren't a fool, but we do need you to tell us anything you know. Toshinori did end up finding good words to comfort Mirko. He wasn't completely useless at emotional bonding with people, or helping them. Rumi gave a tearful smile. I'm a fool, because even after seeing the gap between us, I still love him. He kept so much from me, his identity, his real power, so much, and even after these secrets my heart can't hate him. Rumi spoke, hating herself more than anyone else since her current predicament was all her fault. All this inner conflict was because she refused to let go of her feelings, because she was unable to allow herself to separate herself from them. I was defeated, my body stripped naked, and my humiliation shown on national TV. I was held hostage too. The world saw me, the great Mirko, physical and emotionally destroyed. Rumi listed just some of the ways that she had been crushed. All of that happened, and she still refused to let go of her love. She wanted to stop loving him so much, but her heart wasn't having any of it. Toshinori didn't know what to say to that. He had been broken before to such a level, 3 times in his life. The first time when he thought that All for One had murdered his master, though Orochimaru had saved her and enslaved her. He had been injured, but not as badly as Mirko. In his fight with All for One, he had been injured to such a degree that his body had never recovered from it. Even now he could only maintain his quirk for a full hour before he couldn't use it for the rest of the day. The third time he had been emotionally broken by Orochimaru, when he had summoned his master to fight him. He had never experienced both at the same time, and had it shown to the entire world, like what happened to Mirko when she experienced her lowest moments in life. The quirk he used is All for One. It lets him take the quirks of others by touching their foreheads. All Might was gravely injured by the original possessor of that quirk, and I was killed. Were it not for Orochimaru and Kurama, I wouldn't be here today. I understand why you want to defend him, and why you feel so betrayed. We are not his enemies. We want to help him. Nana explained more of the situation to Rumi, who deserved the truth to some degree. Toshinori looked at Nana as if she were crazy, before he sighed and nodded his head. They weren't Kurama's enemies, they just wanted to capture him to help him. Kurama needs to repent for the lives he took, even though his actions were understandable. He also needs to be watched to make sure he never used that quirk for evil. Sadly, I don't think even Tartarus could hold him. Other than killing Kurama, we have no way to really bring him to justice. All Might tried to comfort the hero Mirko. She glanced at him, before she looked at Nana. The tightest security jail in the world, Tartarus, capable of holding pretty much any villain in the world. All Might was giving Kurama the highest of praise by stating that he didn't believe the jail could hold Kurama. Tartarus? Nana asked with a tilted head. A super prison, nobody has ever escaped, but Kurama would be the first. If All for One gave his quirk to Kurama, that means he sees in Kurama more potential than even himself. This is also the man who killed Orochimaru. Please, Mirko, do you have no information that could help us? All Might asked her, and she bit her lips. Now they were asking for even more personal information about Kurama that she did have. You know who he is? Rumi asked as she looked at Nana's eyes. Nana was a liar. She was pretending that she needed to know information about Kurama, but she already knew his real identity. Those eyes told her everything, and the way the woman seemed even more guilty proved it to her. Of course she doesn't dash. I do, but I can't tell any information myself. He saved my life, he saved me from hell, and his blood flows through my veins. Even if I wanted to, every time I try to say who he is, my body freezes up. I get flashes and memories of my time in Orochimaru, and I can't speak. Nana admitted, and her own student seemed a little betrayed by her words. He was understanding though, when he considered what she had gone through to get to that point. She most of her life undergoing mental and physical torture inside of Orochimaru, she couldn't say a word against her savior without being forced to relive everything she went through. I'm not going to betray him. I wouldn't be able to face him honestly if I did. Before I am the hero Mirko, I am the woman Rumi. Anyway, I'm not a hero anymore. Rumi stated as she glanced at the table next to her hospital bed. All Might looked at her in shock. They revoked your license? All Might couldn't believe such an amazing hero had been fired by the government. Nana felt sympathy. No? I just quit. I love being a hero, but I'm done. This showed me that I can't go any further than this, and I'll never be the same again. Even after I finish my physical therapy, the doctors say I won't be nearly as strong as before. Not to mention I was stripped and broken in front of a national audience. You don't recover from that. Rumi stared at the ceiling, and now her broken eyes made even more sense. She had quit being a hero altogether, because this event had truly been the end of her career. Stripped, beaten, broken, emotionally destroyed, and forced to be rescued by a villain that the world knew she had romantic intentions for. Her injuries had been career-ending. Never be the same. I'm sure that with recovery girl dash. I can't have children now. Oh? I'm so sorry. Nana felt tears grow in her own eyes when she heard that. That was more than enough reason for somebody to give up being a hero. Bone fragments had been lodged into my ovaries, and they needed to be removed. They left my womb, but with no eggs. I can never have my own children. Rumi was just broken when she said it. She had been informed of her situation after she woke up from her surgery, and the doctors had been very kind when explaining all her options for the future. She didn't have the strength left in her to cry over this. She was just done. She was happy that Kurama murdered the Kurama 11, because of them she had lost everything. She would have killed them herself if she had learned what they had done to her before that point. She was even pissed that she wasn't the person to kill them, that revenge was forever out of her reach. Her career as a hero was over. Her future as a mother was almost non-existent. Even her revenge was forever out of her grasp. She was just done. You might not be as strong as before, but you can still be amazing again. I never had any sidekicks, and I always did everything alone. Unlike all of you, these months of physical therapy will take me out of the top 10. I'm always getting injured on the job. With my body as it will be, I'll keep getting weaker and weaker, until I die a pathetic death as a forgotten hero. Rumi had put some thought into this, and she spoke of her own future tragic death with certainty. She could see herself being murdered in the future as all of her injuries started to pile up. I'm stupid, but I'm not retarded. I know my body better than anyone, and I'm not capable of recovering from this and becoming the same Mirko as before. So, just leave me alone. Rumi glanced at them with finality. She was done being a hero. This was the end of Mirko. Chapter 42. Okay, then Matatabi, one of the biggest things about being a villain who values the innocent is being able to escape a hero without hurting them. Momo wasn't ready to hit the streets as a villain just yet, since as it were she was only about as skilled as the average pro hero. She had an amazing quirk, but she lacked the training and experience to make true use of her quirk in a professional setting as it were. Even during the arena event when the Kurama 11 attacked and were all killed, by him he should add, she had been completely unneeded despite the fact that she was ready to act the moment he signaled to her. Why are you calling me that now? Momo asked, since they were out of costume. They were just hanging out, training, in a park. Well, we're in the woods right now and nobody is around. We can't be calling each other our real names, so I want you to be able to respond to Matatabi even in escape, though you aren't wrong. Naruto stated as he raised his hands up. Momo was wearing a sports bra and gym shorts, and he was wearing a tracksuit so that they could pretend that they were just doing some after-school practice together if anyone saw them. Momo was a little different. I didn't know you were good at hand-to-hand. I never have a reason to use it, I hate fighting and violence in general. What you saw the other day with those. I was really angry because they crossed a line. Naruto stated as he threw a couple of soft jabs at Momo. They wouldn't hurt her even if they connected, but they were thrown fast enough that they could knock the air out of her if they hit. She just needed to keep her eyes on them and dodge them, while holding a conversation. He hated violence and killing, but even he had a line that he didn't want crossed. If somebody crossed that line, then he wouldn't hesitate to do something he felt distaste for. Momo seemed to hesitate for a moment when she opened her mouth. You know I killed Orochimaru, the world knew I killed him, but seeing murder with your own eyes is different, isn't it? Naruto asked Momo, since he knew why she was hesitating. He had experienced it the first time he saw a person murdered in front of his eyes. When he had been training under Jiraiya, another villain had attacked them to get at Jiraiya, and the man killed the villain in cold blood. You know, you can go back to the way things were if you want. You haven't really made your villain debut yet. Naruto offered her, and she frowned. She shook her head, and Naruto stopped his fist in front of her face, and she jerked back a little. His attacks never once touched her through their entire training. Whenever she would get hit he stopped the attack and threw the same attack at her so she could get practice dodging that speed of attack. You said you would kill them, and you did. I'm just shocked at how easy it was for you. Momo spoke softly as she ducked under a fist. Naruto chuckled. We have quirks, this is the difference between heroes and villains Momo. Heroes are required to hold back their quirks so they never kill unless it is completely needed. Villains don't have to hold back, but I do think holding back is a good trait. Naruto admitted he was guilty of doing the same thing as heroes in holding back the killing potential of his quirk. You showed multiple quirks dash. Let's not talk about that, before then I didn't even know I could do that. It raised a lot of questions in myself I don't want to think about. Naruto would rather nobody mention the fact that he had the all-for-one quirk inside of him. It raised a lot of questions inside of his mind that he prayed he was wrong about. Did he steal his parents' quirks when he was a baby? Was his toad quirk so strong because he stole his father's toad quirk, and it added to his own? Was his birth the reason his parents died? Would his parents still be alive if he had never been born? He didn't want those questions answered. Oh, right? It's scary though, killing people is terrifying. I don't like it. I hate it so much. Sometimes you have to do it though. That's why I want you to kill me if I ever go overboard, and become really evil. Naruto stated as he reached out and threw a quick attack at Momo that was faster than she could even dodge. She was shocked when she felt something change in her body, and she stepped backwards in shock when she realized he had done something to her. Momo created a small cube from her cleavage. You didn't take my quirk? Momo asked, since that was how he took that dead girl's quirk. My mom's quirk was those golden chains, touching them negates other quirks, if I ever go out of control. I want you to use that quirk to kill me. Naruto gave her a sorry smile, since he was putting a lot of pressure on her. He didn't want that quirk. He used his mother's quirk to commit murder, he didn't deserve to have that quirk and keep using it. Having that quirk was also a reminder that he had stolen it from his mother, so he wanted somebody he could trust to have it instead. He could trust Momo's judgment, he felt that, and he knew that his first partner was going to be important to the future of Kurama villainy. Are you sure you should be giving me something so important? I'm Kurama, I've been fine all this time with just toad, or poison as people think. Anyway, that quirk is the best way to stop me if I ever lose it. I need a person who can stop me if I lose my way. I want you to be that person, Momo. Naruto admitted to her with a guilty smile. Momo was starting to learn that Naruto's smiles were very different. Toad and Frog were very similar. The biggest difference was that Frog showed very little facial expressions, while Toad quirks seemed to have their owners constantly smiling a little. They were more expressive than even the average person, but most of their emotions were shown through different types of smiles. She rarely saw him without a smile because of it. You want me to kill Dash? I don't want you to kill me, I would rather not die. If, and I repeat, if I turn into an evil monster, do the world and me a favor and stop me, only in that very specific situation do I need to die. In any other situation, just use that quirk to calm me down. Naruto felt the need to explain that he wanted to live just as much as anyone else. Naruto sighed to himself, before he rubbed the back of his head. Anyway, I'm still a little bummed that Mirko retired. So I've been feeling a little moody the last few days. Naruto stated as he shook himself. He needed to focus on helping Momo get into villain shape, so that she could do her villain stuff in the afternoon after she got done with her hero classes. Hero classes to train her during the day. Villain classes to train her in the afternoon. Oh, thank God, I didn't want to kill the boy I love. Momo told him as she started to practice some more with him. Will you respond to my feelings? Momo leaned to the right and dodged a straight punch. Naruto shook his head. I want to answer your feelings honestly with my own, and despite how much I flirt as Kurama, right now I'm Naruto and I need to sort out my feelings for Mirko. Gonna be honest though, I'm going to miss feeling you up when you were a hero girl. Naruto teased Momo, since now that they were partners, their game of cat and mouse had ended. He was going to get a lot less chances to tease her body the ways he had done before. Momo blushed crimson from her ears down to her chest. Well, you don't have to stop. Momo did now say that out loud. So, have you visited Mirko in the hospital? Momo asked as she took a few steps back away from Naruto, and she saw the visible regret in his eyes. He didn't. Naruto blamed himself for Mirko retiring early, since she had been beaten and humiliated so badly because she was special to him. He had seen the devastated look on her face when he showed his other quirks, and he knew what she had to have been thinking about him. He didn't know what to say to her, because anything he said would sound like an excuse. I don't want to hurt her by making excuses. Mirko is super strong, no matter how many times I beat her she always was ready to go again. Even if she isn't a hero, she will bounce back and become something beautiful. Naruto verbalized his feelings on the matter. Momo stood still, and Naruto's fist stopped in front of her face. Go talk with her, she needs you right now. You're encouraging me to go visit your love rival, you're aware of that, right? Naruto questioned her reasoning, since Mirko was her absolute biggest competition. Mirko was one of the two people who he knew had feelings for him. It was hard not to know when she flat out confessed to it. Momo gave him a forced smile. You need to talk to her just as much as she needs you. You feel really guilty over her, and you've got unresolved feelings. I don't want to see you hurt, and her hurting is hurting you. When somebody is really important to you, it hurts you to see them hurt, and it is hurting me to see you like this. Momo told Naruto with a real dazzling smile. Naruto's eyes widened for a moment, before the tip of his nose turned a little red. Naruto reached forward and wrapped his arms around Momo, pulling her into a tight hug with his chin touching her shoulder and hers on his. She was a tall girl, and their height difference was minimal because of it. You're special to me too, Muffin Top. Yeah, I know I am. Yaoi Toad. Momo smirked when she used that one against him. She didn't forget how Naruto was naked right next to an equally naked Mirio, right in the middle of the stadium. Naruto lifted her off of her feet and started to walk towards the edge of the water. What are you doing? Momo asked as she swung her feet around. Naruto had a twitching eye. Water sure looks muddy today. Oh crap, please don't, this is a white sports bra. It will get mud stains all over it, and I'm wearing really nice panties. Okay, I won't call you Yaoi Toad again, please don't, no. 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 Momo saw the mud getting closer and closer as she kicked her legs all over the place as fast as she could. The instant regret that she felt for the creation of that nickname was absolutely real. Man, as a toad that mud looks great. Eek. Call me a bunch of stuff, but that is off the table. Naruto stated as he clapped his hands together as he looked down at a mud-covered Momo. He hadn't hesitated to throw her into the muddy water. His bro moment with Mirio over their amazing fight didn't need its memory insulted, and he personally didn't like to remember the fact that he had been naked right next to Mirio on national TV. See you later then, I'm going to go see Mirko. Your place is closer, can I borrow your shower? Sure. Naruto waved off the question. He had a rabbit to visit. Chapter 43. Mirko hated her weakness. She loved being a hero, and she hated the fact she was retired from it now. She hated so much about her situation, but she knew that if she continued to be a hero her injuries would end up killing her sooner rather than later. Even after therapy, the doctors guessed that she would only ever be able to manage to get back 1/3 of her original strength, and 1 to 3 RD would forever be the limit to how strong she could become. 1 out of 3 RD of the great Mirko was still stronger than the average pro hero, but not strong enough to keep her alive against the enemies she had made over the course of her career. She couldn't get her mind off it. The Prime Minister of Japan even visited her, and gave her a Medal of Honor for her years of great hero work. Her retirement was the hot new thing on the internet in Japan, and because of that she couldn't even use the internet to take her mind off of her own situation. Pictures of her naked body were out there now too, and she kept seeing people using her naked image to Photoshop other pictures of her into naked ones with surprising accuracy. All these pictures were annoying, and not her biggest concern, but the fact that they were accurate to her real body disturbed her. She hated the people who visited her, begging her to be a hero again, taunting her with the life and job she really wanted more than anything. It was tempting, oh so tempting, to just say yes to those requests. She hated the fact that she would never capture Kurama. She hated the fact that even if she were still a hero at 100% of her potential, she would never catch Kurama. Nice weather, eh bun bun? Rumi's head whipped around and she looked at the window, and she saw Kurama sitting on the edge of the now open window. Her eyes widened in surprise at the sight of him, since even after a week this was her first time seeing him. Kurama, this is the 21st floor? Yeah, and I'm super afraid of heights. Naruto stated with a teasing tone, and Rumi gripped her fist tightly, before she relaxed it. Gripping her fist too tightly caused her arm to pain her, and she didn't want to experience the pain. Naruto rolled into the room on his back, before flopping back to his feet. Whoops, anyway, so how are you doing this morning? Naruto asked Rumi as he walked over to the open door and closed it. Rumi turned her head away from him, refusing to say another word. He walked over to her and sat on her bed. He hid his strength from me, he toyed with me for almost a year now. Rumi thought in anger, and Naruto hummed to himself. Rumi closed her eyes when she heard his humming, and she felt herself growing a lot more calm from it. She felt herself fall more and more into a hypnotic state, until she turned her head to Naruto. What do you want, murderer? Rumi finally asked, and she spat out that word to try and hurt him. You've killed two, you know. It was an accident when I did it, and the villain was pushing me too hard. I didn't have a choice. Rumi shouted as she turned her head towards Naruto, and he sent her a look. They killed a child in front of me, so I made an example of them. I too didn't have a choice but to kill them. The innocent are not to be touched is my rule, anyway, don't pretend to be mad at the killing. You don't care about that, so stop being a little crippled bitch and tell me what's on your mind. Naruto gave her a harsh look, since she was beating around the bush and just trying to piss him off or hurt his feelings. Rumi jerked back in shock at his harsh words, and she looked down at her battered body, and she trembled a little in anger. She calmed down though, and she looked at him with narrowed eyes. They did this to me to get to you. You were a hero. Villains targeting you is something you should be able to handle. They were better than you and you lost. You've lost to me every single time we've ever fought. Naruto stated to her just as harshly. He wasn't here to be nice to her. He was here to talk with her. You're right, I was too weak. I was too weak to beat them, and I was too weak for you to ever use your full power against. Rumi lost all her anger, and she looked down at her hands in self-pity. Naruto glanced at her with a raised eyebrow, since he had no idea what would have ever given her that idea. She did realize he didn't want to kill her, right? What do you think my poison not killing you meant? My poison is deadly, so of course I held back. If this is about me stealing and using quirks, I didn't know I could do that until I got super pissed off. Naruto stated to her factually. Rumi looked at him in pure surprise at his admission, and Naruto reached out towards her and touched her forehead. He did not take her quirk. I'm not some power-hungry fool who wants to rob others of their quirks. So why would I ever use this ability on you, even if I knew about it? So, you gave up, huh? Naruto asked Rumi, and she looked away from him again. Naruto pulled out his phone and looked up some of the pictures of her. Well done. You suck. Did you come here to taunt me or make me be a hero again? Rumi asked Naruto with a glare in her eyes. Naruto pulled his mask down and turned his face to her. She was surprisingly unsurprised. So, that's what you look like, you're handsome. Rumi stated with a look that showed that while she had not figured out who he was, she wasn't all that surprised either. It was like deep down, some part of her had known for a while. That was because in her memories, part of her did know. I don't care if you become a hero again, that is your choice. You made your choice, and I'm going to respect it. There has never been a moment that I've ever had anything but respect for you, Rumi, and I respect this choice you've made. I'm here because you're throwing yourself a pity party, and you need to be encouraged. Naruto stated as he twisted so he was sitting face to face with her on her bed. Rumi huffed. So you think that you can just appear here, and magically I'll feel better? My entire life was ruined, I lost my dream, I lost my strength, I lost something I hoped for in the future. Rumi stated, and Naruto just shrugged. That shrug pissed her off. Nothing I say will change what happened to you, and I'm not going to try and make you feel better. I'm just worried about you, so I came here to talk with you. So, I want you to know if you ever need me, I'll be there for you. Naruto offered her that simply. He didn't want to try and fix all her problems, since that would seem hollow of him. He caused a few of her problems, and that would make a few of the things he wanted to do seem like he was doing it out of guilt. Rumi smirked a little, but it was weak. Everyone has been too nice to me, but you haven't been. Either people hate me for quitting, or they are too understanding. You're both harsh and kind. I hate you so much. Rumi had her smile gain some strength. Naruto scratched his cheek. That would be understandable, but I don't believe that you hate me. Anyway, I know what happened and that you can't have children of your own, and while I understand how much that sucks for you, I know a way for you to still experience being a mother. There are lots of children out there who don't have parents after all. Naruto spoke with a grin on his face. Rumi not being able to have children of her own sucked, but she was far from the only woman who had this problem. It was quite common, and he wanted to let Rumi know that she didn't have to give up on her dream of being a mother. It's not the same dash. I'll kick your ass if you say adopting orphans can't be just as great for a mother, and no poison, just my fists. You feel bad you can't have children, but those orphans feel bad they don't have mothers. You're not the only person in this world who is having a hard time. I'm going to help you as much as I can though. Naruto could hear running from two sources, so Naruto pulled his face mask up and turned towards the door. Naruto also looked towards the window. All Might came quickly through the door, ready for a fight. He took 3 steps into the room, before he collapsed on his face. Poison, already? Well duh, I knew you and Nana were hanging around here waiting for me. So when I closed the door, I poisoned the handles. Naruto didn't need to be a genius to know they were waiting for him. He heard the sound of a woman collapsing, and saw Nana had collapsed onto the floor once she landed in the room. When he rolled onto the floor, his body touched all over the window as he rolled, poisoning quite a bit of it. So this is what it's like to be a victim to his cleverness. Nana thought as she looked at Naruto from the other end of his villain side. All for one, and one for all? I don't want anything to do with any of that. I didn't choose to have this power, unlike you two who chose to have one for all. So don't go treating me like all for one, think about what I said, Bun Bun. Naruto waved to her, since All Might was defeated once more. How do we know we can trust you won't be like him? Just think about it, and what I've done so far. Naruto didn't feel the need to explain himself to All Might. So he left. Rumi had a lot to think about. Chapter 44. Okay Muffintop, watch and learn how a villain does it. Matatabi. Momo corrected him, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Momo was still a hero student, and she was currently doing her internship with a real hero. She was getting hero training, though according to her it was more like how to handle and increase popularity than real training. Now she was going to be getting her villain training from him, and he was going to be the kind of teacher that would show her the ropes. The first thing to do to be a villain. Kumikrim. Just watch and learn, to attract heroes I always do a crime first. So, we're going to steal the next amazing scientific discovery. Now, the first thing a villain needs is confidence. Having a song in your head helps gets you motivated and confident. Naruto stated as he took a step backwards off the top of a building. Play Achievement Hunter, good at being bad. Momo jumped off the roof after him, and started to free fall towards the ground. Since they got to the top of the skyscraper by hitching a ride on a helicopter that was passing by, they just needed to fall to the correct floor. Momo kept her eyes on Naruto the entire time as he kept his arms crossed and fell in a rather unnaturally calm way. He reached out and touched the side of the building, and started to slow his fall down quickly as they started to approach the 54th floor. Momo created gloves covered in a highly sticky substance with her quirk and pulled it out of her cleavage. She grabbed onto the building with both of her hands, in contrast to Naruto using one hand to stick and his foot to keep his balance. She stopped next to him, but below him enough that she needed to climb up the building. Naruto pulled a knife out of his pocket, a knife that Momo never saw him use on a hero. He created a quick circle that happened so quickly that Momo barely saw his hand move, before he flicked the glass circle and shattered only the glass that was inside of his cut circle. Naruto flipped into the building using the hole he made, and Momo climbed in after him. "I've never seen you use a knife," Momo pointed out. Naruto rolled his eyes. "Nobody has ever seen me commit a crime, they only discover me after I commit the crime. If they ever discovered me before I did the crime, that wouldn't be humiliating for the hero if they actually prevented the crime," Naruto stated as he started to walk forward. He pulled out his second knife and started to walk forward. He moved his left hand as he walked, and positioned his right and left hand at odd angles that Momo didn't understand. "Security system, watch this," Naruto stated as stepped forward and moved his hands perfectly. He reached into his pocket and tossed a small ball on the ground. Boom! A slight layer of smoke filled the room, and Momo stepped back in shock when she saw a red light moving from one side of the room to the other. It was positioned so perfectly that it would sense anyone coming in through the window. Anyone not expecting it would for sure trip the alarm, and it was a high-tech security system. He beat it with 2 knives. Toads have absolute night vision, and the ability to see infrared light. All these little lights, I can see them so clearly. Since you don't have that ability, you need to always assume that less than 6 inches away from the glass there are infrared lights. Naruto walked towards the door and he moved across the room and around each of the lights like a pro. Momo followed after him and mimicked his movements the best that she could manage, and her flexibility and athletic ability allowed her to not trip any of the lights. Momo was taking mental notes, and she was appreciating this. This was Kurama performing the crimes that heroes chased him for. Nobody had ever had any recorded evidence of Kurama ever doing his crimes until he decided to make himself obvious. Kurama only got caught in the act when he wanted to be. Naruto stopped as he got to a locked door. "I've got T-dash." Momo didn't get a chance to show off as Naruto unlocked the door with a couple of quick uses of his finger and the knife. When the door popped open, she was surprised when he put his hands in his pockets with a confident aura. Naruto pulled out his knife again and leaned it outside of the door slightly, and he looked down the halls of both sides. This hallway has a total of 3 security cameras, but 7 blind spots. "Momo, follow all of my movements exactly 7 seconds after I do them," Naruto stated as he jumped out of the hallway, and she looked at him and watched as he ran down the hallway, and kicked off on the wall as he ducked behind a potted plant. Half a second later, he moved from behind the potted plant and ducked into the women's bathroom. Momo followed after him, and she could understand why he told her to wait when she noticed how quickly the cameras were moving. She kicked off of the wall and hid behind the potted plant just as the camera was about to see her, and when it passed her she ran towards the women's bathroom. That was hard. That was easy, and now we use the vent that connects the 2 bathrooms. Naruto walked over towards the vent that connected the men and women's bathrooms. He kicked open the vent, since it had no security system. This type of security fault is common these days, connecting the women and men's vent systems. "Now we head into the next bathroom," Naruto told her as she watched him get down and slip into the vent. She followed him. Her butt got stuck, and her boobs dragged against the floor in an uncomfortable way. She wiggled her butt the best she could, and managed to get unstuck as Naruto dusted himself off. When she got out of the vent, she could feel his grin. "Don't say it. Muffin, top," Naruto stated to her, and she took a swing at him with her open palm. Naruto grinned and dodged her just as a man walked into the bathroom. The late-night janitor doing his rounds got hit by a perfectly timed powerful slap to the neck. He hit the ground. "Oh, how did you know?" Momo was shocked that he seemed to know the man was going to come through the door. Naruto grinned at her. "You think I go into these crimes blind? This janitor works nights, and he has followed the same pattern for bathroom cleaning for the past 4 days. That's why we needed to be in this bathroom," Naruto told Momo as he reached down and started to strip the man naked. Momo had a blush visible around her eyes when she saw Naruto putting on the man's clothes over his own clothes, and he unmasked himself and hid the hood of his hoodie. Naruto's face matched the man's face. The toad has a camo ability, and I make a very selective use of it. I change the color of my skin to match somebody, my eyes to match their eyes, and hair to match their hair. I can't change the shape of my bones, but at a passing glance I'm a perfect match." Naruto gestured towards the extremely faint whisker marks he had. He finished his disguise by putting the man's hat on his head, grabbing the cleaning cart and pushing it out into the hallway. "Well, get under." Naruto opened the cart and showed that there was enough room for her to squeeze and hide inside of it. Momo just nodded and got inside, hiding and honestly being taken aback by just how good at crime Naruto was. He was a true professional at the act of not getting caught in a crime, and she was just now realizing something no hero had realized. No hero had ever caught Kurama. Factually speaking, if Kurama didn't even want to get caught committing the crime, nobody would ever even know he was there. They only ever knew Kurama did the crime because he made it super obvious after he was done. Yet nobody seemed to realize that no hero had actually stopped him from breaking into wherever he wanted to break into. Heroes only ever see him use his poison touch, but when he commits crimes, he makes full use of his toad quirk in such unique ways. Momo thought in surprise when she saw Naruto casually unlock the door to an office with the janitor's key card, a more highly secured room. He walked into the room like it was nothing, and he flipped on the light switch. They were caught by security cameras, but because Naruto had been disguised as the janitor, none of that even mattered at the moment. Naruto approached a computer and turned it on, putting his mask back on and taking the janitor's clothes off. Did you have to take his underwear? Yes, and before you ask, because it was funny. Naruto gave his reason with a grin under his mask. Naruto typed in the password, and Momo looked at him in surprise. Another rule: scout the area beforehand. I used my camo to sneak in here and watch a scientist, and waited for the password. Never hack a computer, it nearly always leaves traces of the hack. This way, the use of the computer seems natural, and with this, all security systems in the building other than those on the roof have been shut off. Naruto explained to Momo as he leaned back in the chair, and she realized that they were in the security office. Naruto got up and walked in a laid-back fashion, with Momo following him. Like a badass, he walked out the door and over to the elevator. Now, we take a trip to the research department, and take our little prize. The blueprints to those ANBU should be a good prize. Naruto stated with a grin. He wanted to prove a point, and stealing the documents behind these ANBU machines sounded like the perfect way to show Danzo that his little machines had no chance to defeat him. He was going to enjoy watching the man try to explain himself to the news on how Kurama broke into his building, and stole the documents on his machines. Momo kept taking mental notes. Ding. Now, my dear Matatabi, let's steal these blueprints dash. Later. And look, the ever-famous eraser head. Bravo on you being the first person to arrive here. Naruto stated as he looked at the UA teacher without a grin. Momo gulped, unsure if she had a chance to defeat the man. He looked super serious. So, Kurama has a partner now, can't say that sounds like a good thing. I thought you were a solo act. He seems so serious. I can't beat him. Momo thought as she reached into her cleavage and pulled out a bow staff. So your quirk allows you to store objects and pull them from your cleavage, unlike his quirk, I can stop that one. Eraserhead spoke as he moved towards them. Naruto grabbed Momo and pulled her out of the way, and he dodged the capture scarf without missing a beat. Momo was just stunned by how she had been effortlessly saved. Well, while he was an impressive teacher, he was still only a slightly above average pro hero with a good quirk. He wasn't really prepared for a villain who could fight and defeat him with or without their quirk. I never said that, and you better be careful, you never know when you're going to take a fall. Naruto stated. The man fell to his knees, and collapsed to his face. How? Momo shouted in shock, she didn't even see him do that. My capture tool, when you saved her, you touched it and put poison on it. When I called it back to myself, it touched me. Eraserhead could understand it though. Naruto took his goggles off of his head, and twirled them around his finger. He tucked the stolen blueprints away underneath Eraserhead's scarf. Well, Matatabi, remember this for next time. Be extremely subtle even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious to the point of soundlessness. There you can be the director of the opponent's fate. More than that, you need to learn to appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Naruto stated as he beckoned for Momo to follow him. He tossed her Eraserhead's goggles, since they would be the first victory trophy that she would get to keep. This was her debut after all, she needed something to remember it by. He made himself look like a weak fighter for months, when he was actually strong. I'm weak, so he's telling me to make myself appear strong. Momo could understand what Naruto was saying. She also knew where he was getting it from. You're quoting Sun Tzu. Yes, he is, but this isn't the arrogance of somebody who read Sun Tzu and idolizes him. Naruto already fought this way, he is deceptive and cunning. He analyzes his enemy, and tricks the enemy into acting how he wants them to act. He never misses a single detail, and he goes into every battle with the knowledge that he has already won. Sun Tzu never had a quirk, and could never plan around a society with them. Naruto has surpassed that man as somebody who has mastered the art of battle. Momo thought as she gulped. She now understood why Naruto was only ever highly confident. He allowed heroes to discover his crimes. He didn't fight heroes, and turned their quirks and personalities against them and never needed to throw a single punch. He accurately predicted what his opponents would do, by understanding the fact they were human and using his knowledge on them to force them to act the way he wanted them to act. Naruto showed no weakness. Naruto showed no strength other than his poison. Heroes didn't know what or how to defend themselves from Naruto, which means that his tactics could never be predicted for the very reason that he was still a mystery even after all this time. Now that there was knowledge that he could possess multiple quirks and steal them, heroes had no clue what his quirk was or what other strengths he could have. Naruto doesn't just defeat heroes. Naruto makes heroes defeat themselves. Kurama is the #1 villain. Chapter 45. A new hero. I don't recognize this guy. Naruto thought to himself as he backflipped off of a building. Considering that Momo was at her work studies and classes were over for the day, he was understandably confused why he was being chased by a hero he had never heard of. He hadn't even stolen anything yet, and he was such a controversy that many heroes hesitated before they even tried to fight him or capture him now. So you're the quirky villain after all. Finally, somebody gets it. I'm not the strange, the weird, or whatever it is they want to call me. I'm the quirky villain. Naruto shouted in amazement at how finally somebody addressed him the way he wanted to be addressed. He was a strange villain that had a quirky fighting style. He was also a villain with multiple quirks, so he was very quirky. I don't care about your personal feelings over a nickname. As it stands, I'm extremely reluctant to be a hero right now. I don't know. The large fox-like figure dodged a finger that would have touched his body. They fell towards the ground, with Naruto kicking off the side wall and landing on the sidewalk. The foxman after him just landed on his feet and put a crater in the ground, and he rushed down Naruto with a good amount of speed to him. Naruto bent backwards as a fist sailed over his vision, and he reached out to touch the exposed flesh in front of him. He ended his assault though when a second tail came out of nowhere and crushed the ground he had been standing on, and Naruto landed from his jump upside down on the top of a street lamp. 2 tails on a fox quirk? Weird. Are we sure you're not the quirky hero or something? That's a pretty quirky power you have. Naruto grinned under his mask as he made eye contact with the man who was chasing him down. So Foxman, do you have a red rocket under the belt or what? Ha 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 ha. Naruto jumped to the ground when Foxman kicked the street and ripped a chunk out of the ground, before grabbing it and throwing it right at him. My name isn't Foxman. You sure? How about Kitsune Hero, Foxy? Foxman, you're a real sexy dude, bet your girl is super happy to have you. Naruto joked around as he dodged claw swips. Each time he tried to touch the man attacking him, but somehow the man was able to dodge each attempt to so much as lay a finger on him. Taking his finger, he swept it across his forearm and sent some of his poison flying towards the hero. He slung poison across the foxman's face. Toxic sling. Nice move, right? A good high-speed target poison, right at the eyes. Whoa! Naruto jumped back when the foxman continued to rush at him. Okay, foxes are not immune to poison. That should have, maybe I just didn't use a high enough dose? Naruto stated when he jumped back again. His opponent was able to attack him while weaving through people like it wasn't a problem at all, and it seemed that no matter where Naruto dodged to, this man was just a few steps behind him. He was just as persistent as Mirko had been. Foxes aren't immune to poison, but it doesn't matter if you use poison, because in the end, I'm still going to be alright. The man muscled his way through the poison coursing through him. Naruto laughed for a moment. Oh, well shit, you're the kind of asshole that fucks the laws of sciences. That's a little unfair. You possess all for one, that is very unfair. To be fair, I have no clue how I got it or when. Naruto danced around multiple tail strikes. He was going to keep trying to poison this man until even this rule-breaking ability to ignore poison couldn't overcome the sheer amount of poison. Also, nice banter. It's nice to see a hero that knows the value of good banter. Naruto praised the man after him. All Right was having none of that praise. He slammed both of his feet against the ground and sped at Naruto like a bullet. I'm all right, but you're not going to be. Eh? Naruto had that moment before he was slammed into by a wall of thick muscle and tackled through a brick wall. Then a truck. Then another brick wall. It hurt like a bitch, and he had parts of the shattered bricks on top of his body. He jumped up out of the crater he was in, and he sent a thumbs up to All Right. You're right, I've walked off getting hit by a truck before, and that hurt way more. I'm going to the hospital after this, but I just hit you with a ton of poison. Oh come on. Naruto jumped up high and landed on the roof of a short building when All Right continued to stand, and took a step towards him. That was bullshit. You don't seem to understand, you possess all for one, that means that I have to take you down. No matter how reluctant I am to hurt a decent person, I am still a hero. All Right summoned a small blue fireball above his finger. It burst into a dozen and all of them went after Naruto, but none of them hit him as he weaved through them. Kurama has been hit by a hero. This unknown hero is the first hero to ever land a blow on Kurama. Oh great, now that is going to be in the news for weeks. I'm never going to hear the end of that. You see what you did, Foxman. Naruto was a little worried, but not about the news. Also, how are you breaking the rules? Naruto asked with a tilt of his head. The man appeared before him. I don't follow rules that stop me from doing my job. It's biology, you asshole. I just poisoned you with enough poison to kill a 100 All Mights and 2 Endeavors at the same time. That isn't simply not following rules, that is complete bullshit that you don't even seem to be affected. Naruto called out as he pointed the accusing finger at All Right. Of course, I could forgive you if you just drop and pass out. Nope. Naruto jumped off the side of the building when All Right jumped up to the top of the building after him. All Right punched Kurama. He punched him from 30 feet away. Okay? What was that? Naruto asked as he looked at All Right's fist as it was currently 30 feet away from him, and he didn't use his quirk. That wasn't even a quirk. How did you just punch my face? I hit the air. The air isn't my face. The air was between me and your face, so I just needed to punch the air hard enough for the air to hit your face. Now prepare. All Right stopped when he took a knee. The poison kicked in all the way. Finally dash. All Right stood up. He. I'm in danger. Naruto laughed to himself as he rubbed the back of his head. As long as there is a villain in front of me, I'm always going to be all right, until the moment my opponent isn't. That is terrifying. Naruto quipped as he dodged a punch that hit the air, before it would have hit him. You do realize you're a hero, and saying stuff like that is super scary? Naruto asked the hero before him. All Right appeared before him. Why haven't you thrown a punch? If you don't fight back, I might accidentally kill you. I can only hold myself back for so long. Yeah, I kind of don't like fighting. I just like to steal costume parts from heroes without hurting them, and I only kill people who hurt children, and technically, you're attacking me for a very legit reason, so I'm not exactly angry. Where are you going? Naruto asked the hero. He turned and started to walk away. All for one or not, you're no threat to this world. You weren't the villain that I was told you were. I'm going to go demand to be returned back to my own world. My grandmother Nana wouldn't have wanted me to attack somebody not doing any harm after all. Oh, okay, you going to apologize for breaking my bones? Naruto asked in a deadpan tone. No, dick. You're still a villain. A few broken bones is what you get for poisoning people. Of course. All Right vanished from view mid-sentence. The media watching was surprised when a small white-haired boy approached Kurama before them and handed him a note. Sorry for the inconvenience, his timeline is broken and sometimes things like this happen. I'll heal you up, and then you can go about your business. I apologize for the mess-up quirky villain. Naruto's shattered bones were healed, just as he read those words. Then the boy was gone. Okay? Can somebody please explain to me what the fuck just happened, and what the fuck this day even is? Naruto was confused on all levels on what just happened. He needed to know why somebody that broke all the rules just appeared, fought him, and then left was doing here. He also needed to know whether that boy just came from and went. He was so confused right now? Chapter 46. Rumi. Huh, what? Mirko asked as she stopped looking at the TV, and looked towards her doctor as he looked at the chart in with the details of her therapy on it. She had finished most of her physical therapy, but she had some scars on her body in some places. Internal and external, and while she was strong enough to put some heroes to shame, she was no longer nearly as strong as she used to be. She only had a maximum output of 1/3 of her full strength. Your therapy is done, and I know you retired, but I urge you to reconsider. If I can't pound villains the way I used to, then I'm not going to bother at all. Anyway, the only villain worth catching is out of my reach, so what is the news other than that? Mirko asked as she crossed her arms in front of her. Naruto's rough talk with her had actually helped her get some of her backbone back. What happened to her sucked. Her future would forever be changed, but she was still alive, and she could still help people in another way. She could become a hero again, but a far less effective hero. So how is my little bun doing? Kurama. Sup. Naruto greeted the doctor with a wave of his hand, having snuck in through the window. Everyone seemed to have forgot the fact that he ran into some random hero called All Right. He had no idea what the hell that was about though. It was like time just didn't exist for the people who had witnessed that event in his life. It freaked him out on a deep level, so what better way to chill himself out than to mess with Mirko? Mirko stared at Naruto. Seems that my visit is going to be cut a little short, anyway, and that sucks. I was practicing stealing quirks and found a pedophile that had a regeneration quirk. It's too bad. It seems my idiot Bun hasn't recovered enough for me to let her borrow it. Naruto grinned as he looked at Mirko, his masked face sparkling, his hand reaching out to ruffle her hair. He had nothing better to do. Anyway, it was easy to sneak into the government and locate the Quirk registry, and then cross it with the criminals who had hurt children. Somewhere in a nearby city was a dead pedophile who had his quirk stolen from him, but that was a story that didn't need a lot of detail. You would give me. It doesn't seem like you're recovered though, which sucks. You're not quite the idiot bun that chased me. Oh well, so doctor, give her the bad news, she will never play the harmonica again. Naruto lamented Mirko's inability to ever play the whistle instrument again. Mirko was sending him a hope-filled look. Naruto walked towards the window. Wait just a damn second you bastard, heal me. Ah, seems you've recovered a little bit more, use that spirit and regeneration quirk to recover the rest of the way. Naruto took out a knife and tossed it at Mirko. It stabbed her in the forearm, and she yelped from the shock. She yanked it out. The wound started to heal. See ya. Naruto backflipped out of the window. Doctor, tell me how much I have to work to get back to my old strength. I don't care how much effort and pain it will take, or if it breaks my body. Mirko felt a fire ignite inside of her soul when she realized that she could use this gift to help her push through and regain her old strength. With the ability to regenerate, she might just be able to recover. Not recover. No, she would break her body and soul until the day that she had fully recovered. She would tear each and every muscle in her body until the day that she could grow back to the strength that she had once had. What just happened? With Naruto. Was that the right thing to do? Momo had to ask as she followed behind Naruto, using springs to keep up with his jumps across the rooftops. She looked back at the clinic that Mirko was at, and she raised an eyebrow when she saw Naruto's grin from even under his mask. Nope. You were so harsh to her the other day though. Because, she was all pathetic and mopey as shit. Anyway, she still can't have children, but at the very least I can give her back her dream. She wants to be a hero. Regeneration will not fix what she has healed from, but at the very least now she can put in the effort to grow stronger again, and once Mirko is my stupid bun again, I'll take that quirk back from her. Naruto did a flip out of excitement. She had partially given up hope of the fun chases he enjoyed with Mirko coming to an end. Anyway, we're not against heroes, we're here to be free. The ability to have fun doing what we want to do is my goal, and not having her chasing me just feels wrong. Naruto stated as he grabbed onto Momo and jumped up higher than her springs would allow her to jump. Momo tried to understand him, but she stopped trying when she realized that his reasoning would make sense to only himself. If she really wants to become a hero again, maybe one day she will have that chance, but only if she works hard enough for it. That weak, pathetic Rumi that gave up on being a hero, give up on everything, just wasn't the bun that I enjoyed. Naruto noticed a hero and allowed himself and Momo to free fall for a bit. They landed on either side of the hero. The hero was Midnight doing a patrol. Cool. And down she goes everyone. Momo bowed as Midnight collapsed from Naruto's poison, acting it up for the people as they pulled out their phones to record what was happening. Naruto just raised his hands up into the air. This is so weird, am I being a good villain? Momo thought, a nervous sweat starting to form. Naruto tossed a piece of cloth into her hands. My beautiful new comrade, Matatabi everyone, and her first hero trophy, Midnight's panties, and what panties they are. Naruto called out as Momo blinked, holding up a string thong that Naruto had slipped off of Midnight right after landing next to her, the side ties of the thong undone. She blinked and looked at Naruto in surprise, since she hadn't done much to earn this victory over a hero. Momo smiled awkwardly and bowed to the people recording. She had no clue what she was supposed to say during this. Forgive her, she's still new to being a villain, next time, she'll be a lot more entertaining, and with that, off we go. Naruto stated as he just began to walk away. A lackluster exit for a lackluster hero defeat. This was more to introduce Matatabi to people in a more noticeable way than it was to do anything else. Eventually he would run her through the gauntlet that Jiraiya had run him through when he was younger, the gauntlet that trained him for how to predict how heroes would think and act. Still, it served its purpose.